Chapter 11:11. Friend? Why did these two words keep echoing in his ears? Su Jian did not understand. Since young, he had been regarded as the most Buddha-like and wise person. No matter what kind of scripture was presented to him, he could easily absorb it and grasp the principles behind it. But after meeting the person in front of him, he realized that the principles he had grasped were not effective in front of her. Instead, he was influenced by her. After he finished speaking, Chu Qingyan blinked, as if she had thought of something. Su Jian, I've already recognized you as a friend. What about you? He had not yet digested the shocking words she had just said. Now that she had thrown another question at him, he pondered for a moment and asked, just now, we were talking about the definition of friends. This penniless monk is very curious. Which category do you categorize this penniless monk into? The corners of Chu Qingyan's eyes twitched. Wasn't she the one asking him? Did he know how to change the topic? But she still thought about his words seriously. It should be because we hit it off. But when she said that, she suddenly smiled as if she had thought of something. When they first met, he had saved her. She had thought that he was a godly person. But later, he had wanted her to shave her head and become a monk. It could be said that they did not hit it off at all. The few times they had met after that, they had parted on bad terms. Now that she had categorized him into this category, it was really hard to predict the future. Su Jian was clearly a little surprised. He had thought that she would think of him as a nodding acquaintance. Of course, Chu Qingyan did not miss the shock on his face. She sighed and said, I don't know how to describe it either. Back then, you looked like a flower vase, and you would say all sorts of weird things. It made me speechless. But now that I think about it, every time you appeared, you would save me from danger. Furthermore, after interacting with you for so long, I realize that you are not a stubborn monk. Talking to you is also very relaxing. In my opinion, you are already my friend. Perhaps before this, she had wanted to find out if Big Ice Cube would meet with any misfortune through him. But now, she sincerely wanted to be friends with him. Perhaps the fate between people was just so wonderful. He originally thought that she would have a grudge against him, but he didn't expect to hear her say these words. It was rare for him to feel such emotions after so many years. He was silent for a moment before he said, You lost. Chu Qingyan was confused by his sudden words. Lost? Then, her gaze followed his line of sight, and she couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. When she was talking just now, she was absent-minded and had already forced herself into a dead end. Although she was only 3 steps away, the outcome was already self-evident. She threw the chess piece in her hand into the chess box in frustration and stood up. What a failure. I came here because I was frustrated, but I didn't expect to be hit in the heart again. Forget it, you take your time. I have to go. Waving at him in the air, Chu Qingyan didn't wait for him to say anything and hurriedly left. Because she realized that it was already very late. If she didn't go back, the 2 servant girls in the room would be anxious. Su Jian watched her back disappear into the night and smiled as he put the chess piece in his hand back into the box. Just as he was about to put the chess pieces back into the chessboard, his fingers paused in midair. The black chess pieces neatly formed a word on the chessboard. A friend's close friend. The knot in her heart that she came here for. He was afraid that she had never thought of winning from the beginning. He thought of her fallacious argument and suddenly smiled. Perhaps this kind of person was worth befriending. When she returned to the courtyard, as expected, the 2 servant girls were anxious. Xining and Jasper surrounded her. Master, you're only back now. Chu Qingyan patted the dust off her clothes and looked up with a smile. Aren't I back now? No, look who's here. Xining pointed towards the room. At this moment, the room was silent and dark. She raised her eyebrows slightly. It's so dark and you didn't light a lamp. Who are you trying to scare? Hearing their master's teasing tone, Xining and Jasper pursed their lips and smiled. You'll know when you go in. Hearing Xining's mysterious expression, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but roll her eyes. It was so late at night. Why were they playing games instead of sleeping? The two of them must have been waiting for a long time and thought of something to scare her. All right, I'll go in and take a look. She waved her sleeves helplessly, then went up the steps and prepared to push open the door. However, a gust of wind blew and the door opened by itself. She raised her eyebrows again. They were serious about playing with her. She raised her foot and stepped in. Just as she stood still, the door behind her suddenly closed. She wasn't surprised. Just as she was about to walk forward, she suddenly stopped. The smell in the air. So familiar. She felt her blood boiling in her body and her hands involuntarily clenched. Then she slowly turned around to look. She saw a slender figure standing in front of the bed. The black clothes he was wearing blended in with the dark night. Only the jade pendant at his waist was emitting a clear light. Looking up, she couldn't see his face clearly, but that pair of cold eyes instantly made her blood stop boiling. Then it boiled in an even stronger rhythm. She didn't even think as she rushed over and hugged him. The black figure also tacitly opened his arms and hugged her. Big Ice Cube, you're finally here. I missed you so much. Normally, she rarely said such mushy words of love. She felt that it was a little embarrassing to say such things after spending so much time together. But once they parted, there was a distance between the two of them, so these words naturally came out of her mouth. In the dark night, Xiao Su was originally using his internal energy to restrain the rampaging heat in his body. His body was slightly stiff, but because of her sudden confession, the blood in his body became even more restless. He hugged the person in his arms tightly. I missed you too. When these words came out, Chu Qingyan felt as if she had eaten honey. Her heart was full of bubbles. Big Ice Cube, why didn't you light the lamp? Is it to give me a surprise? She happily guessed. You can say that. Actually, he was afraid that when he saw the person he thought about day and night, he wouldn't be able to control himself. But he forgot that the stronger the internal energy, the better the eyesight. Just now when the little fellow appeared, his gaze couldn't leave her. Chu Qingyan's face turned slightly red. After not seeing each other for a few days, the Big Ice Cube actually learned how to be romantic. She laughed mischievously. Then you can light the fire now. I'll pour some tea for you to drink. I found that although the vegetarian dishes in this temple are very ordinary, the tea is still very good. Seeing that she was about to walk to the table, Xiao Su said in a low voice, No. What's wrong? She didn't understand his words and couldn't help but turn to look at him again. Because my body is inconvenient. Chu Qingyan's eyes widened, as if she had discovered something incredible. The coldness in that pair of black eyes faded and was quickly replaced by a fiery passion. Chapter 11-12. She seemed to have been nailed to the ground. Why did Big Ice Cube give her the feeling that he was a hungry wolf that was about to hunt its prey? What was wrong with Big Ice Cube? She obeyed and did not light the candles, but returned to his side. She did not notice that something was wrong with him earlier, but now that she was standing beside him, she found that his fists were tightly clenched, as if he was restraining something. She could not help but reach out to hold his hand and asked in concern, Big Ice Cube, are you feeling unwell somewhere? Just as she touched his hand, she was shocked by the heat of his skin. You have a fever. Being held by her soft little hand, he felt cold, but it was quickly covered by the heat. He said in a low and hoarse voice, Little fellow, I was drugged. As he said that, he could not help but wrap his arms around her and rest his cheek on her neck, using that delicate and warm skin to resist the heat that kept surging in his body. Feeling the strong aura that could not be ignored, even if she was stupid, she could tell what he was saying about being drugged. No wonder Big Ice Cube did not want her to light the candles, he did not want her to see him like this. When she thought of this, her stomach was filled with anger. Who the hell did it? But now was not the time to investigate this matter, the only thing she could do now was to get rid of the drug on Big Ice Cube's body. She did not know if it was because of the aura on his body, but her face inexplicably turned red. Big Ice Cube, how should I help you? Xiao Su heard the shy voice beside his ear and he almost could not control himself. I'll take you to a place. Chu Qingyan did not know where he was going, but she knew that this was a Buddhist place and it was not suitable for them to do anything. She grabbed her sleeves and nodded shyly. At this time, the window opened and Xiao Su held her waist, preparing to jump out. Wait. She suddenly thought of something and turned to open the door. She said to the two maidservants guarding outside, I have something to do, don't let anyone know that I'm not here. Jasper and Xining nodded in tacit understanding. In the blink of an eye, she was carried by the big ice block and shuttled through the sky above the temple. She turned around and saw that the temple was slowly disappearing from her sight. At this moment, she was following the big ice block halfway up the mountain. Because the two of them were so close together, she could feel his body tensing up and his breathing getting heavier. She pursed her lips. Big Ice Cube must be having a hard time holding it in. At this time, the two of them landed in a place overgrown with weeds. Xiao Su walked forward and pushed aside the weeds. Miraculously, a dark hole was revealed. Chu Qingyan's eyes widened. This is... I found it by accident when I was hunting in the mountains. Come on in. As he spoke, Xiao Su lit a match, illuminating the path in the cave in an instant. She nodded and followed him. It was at this moment that she saw the redness on Big Ice Cube's face. Under the light, it was even more obvious. She gritted her teeth and made up her mind. After walking for a while, a pair of soft and boneless hands suddenly wrapped around his waist. They were like vines, but the vines didn't have any warmth and weren't as delicate. Because he was drugged, his senses were very sensitive. He could clearly feel that soft skin through her thin clothes. He lowered his head to look at the fair and tender hands and said with difficulty, Ian, what are you doing? Just as he finished speaking, she was already pressed against his back. The softness of her chest and his cold and hard back made him unable to see clearly. He could only feel that his body was being wrapped around. It was as if something had wormed its way into his heart. It was itchy and numb, making him want to turn around and ruthlessly squeeze the person behind him into his body. Big Ice Cube, I see that you're having a hard time holding it in. My heart aches for you. Chu Qingyan buried her head in his back and said this softly and slowly. Unknowingly, she was already being honest with him and was willing to give herself to him. What was more irresistible than having one's sweetheart take the initiative? Words entered his ears and tormented his mind. His heart wavered. He held her wrist with one hand and prepared to turn around and embrace her. A gust of wind blew in and the damp air made him sober up in an instant. He saw the scenery in front of him clearly. The cave was filled with strange rocks and there wasn't even a decent bed. How could he take her in a place like this? It wasn't fair to the little fellow. He took a deep breath and resolutely pushed her away. While she was still in a daze, he stuffed the fire starter into her hand and left like the wind towards the depths of the cave. Chu Qingyan blinked as she looked at the empty cave and then looked at the fire starter in her hand. She was in disbelief. She was rejected by Big Ice Cube again. Was she such a failure? She didn't have any charm at all. She scared Big Ice Cube so much that he ran away. She stomped her feet in anger. She was so worried about him. Next time, no matter what he said, she would definitely pounce on him. This baby was so angry. Although she was angry, she still walked towards the depths of the cave. After walking for a while, the view in front of her gradually widened. When she came out of the narrow walkway, she saw a huge pool. To be more precise, it should be a huge cold pool. Because the temperature here was very low, the surface of the pool was emitting cold air. The person she had been looking for a long time was soaking in the pool with his eyes closed. When he heard her footsteps, he opened his eyes and said to her in a hoarse voice, "Find a place to sit." Chu Qingyan was currently in a fit of anger. She didn't care what he said and walked towards the pool. She reached out her hand to touch the water and was caught off guard. She immediately withdrew her hand and looked up to see Big Ice Cube's teasing face. She thought of the scene in the walkway and felt very embarrassed. Did you already plan to come here to soak in the water? Hearing her emotional words, Xiaosu thought about how to explain it so that she wouldn't be angry. I felt that the medicine in my body couldn't be suppressed by internal energy. Otherwise, the rebound would be even more serious. So normal water wouldn't be able to suppress it, so I thought of the pool here. Chu Qingyan snorted, then you must have been laughing at me just now. Silly, why would I laugh at you? Xiaosu looked at her dotingly. She still wanted to say something, but when she saw the undisguised affection in his eyes, the dark clouds in her heart dissipated. Then why didn't you cure the poison first before coming to find me? Isn't it bad for your body to endure it like this? She was very puzzled. Xiaosu looked at her deeply, because I missed you. When I came to this mountain, I thought that you were here, so I couldn't suppress my longing. That's why I'm willing to endure more torture just to see you. These blunt words of love completely made up for her heart. She was happy in her heart, but her face was hot and she was a little helpless. In the end, she stood up, I'll go find some firewood to dry your clothes first. After saying that, she ran away. Xiaosu looked at her back and slowly curled the corners of his mouth. Chapter 11:13. There was nothing in the cave. She ran out to pick up some firewood and some wild fruits before carrying them back into the cave. She set up the firewood and helped him dry his clothes while secretly peeking at the person in the pond. Previously, Big Ice Cube was soaking with his clothes. Now that he handed his clothes to her, he was completely naked in the water. The cold pond was dark and she couldn't see what was going on inside. However, as the fire burned brightly, the light that fell on the surface of the water slowly soaked into the pond. Although she couldn't see clearly, she couldn't help but cover her nose when she saw the bronze-colored 8-pack abs and the blood-spurting golden ratio. She muttered, see no evil, see no evil. However, she still couldn't help but glance over. Xiaosu, who was soaking in the water, felt the heat in his body gradually being swallowed by the cold water. He was slowly freed from the abyss of suffering. At this moment, he had the energy to divert his attention to pay attention to the sneaky gaze on him. He lowered his head and curled his lips. When she was caught off guard, he turned to look at her. Caught red-handed, Chu Qingyan immediately picked up his clothes to cover her face. She said guiltily, it's quite cold in this cave. Xiaosu chuckled. He didn't make fun of her for her cute appearance and her stiff change of topic. He didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. There's 1,000-year-old ice under this cold pond. Because it's deep in the mountains, it's not easy to melt. I accidentally found this place. She nodded meekly, feeling that she had utterly embarrassed herself. You added too much firewood. It's easy to extinguish it. Xiaosu kindly reminded her. She looked down and saw that she had indeed added too much. She immediately took out the firewood in a flurry. Big Ice Cube, do you know who drugged you? The fire crackled. She had already sorted out her emotions and focused on turning over his clothes. I don't know. Xiaosu narrowed his eyes. There was a trace of ruthlessness in his eyes. I'll investigate thoroughly when I get back. They probably wanted to use a honey trap on you. Fortunately, you didn't fall for it and ran out in time. Otherwise, if any woman came over and you couldn't control yourself, at this thought, Chu Qingyan broke the firewood in her hand. She was so angry that she even took it out on him. Voila! Xiaosu stood up from the water, crystal clear water droplets splashing everywhere, some sliding down his chest, abdominal muscles, and lower abdomen. In such a quiet environment, it was as sexy as it could be, and as pleasing to the eye as it could be. Chu Qingyan was startled by his sudden action. Her attention was attracted by his figure, but she quickly covered her eyes and shouted, your clothes are done drying. Quickly put them on. Xiaosu looked at her panicked look and felt very funny. Her mind was filled with the scene she had just seen. At this moment, she held her breath and pricked up her ears. She heard the sound of the water rippling, and then the sound of the shore. A strong aura pressed against her face, followed by the sound of clothes sliding across her skin. She swallowed her saliva and asked, "Are you done?" No one answered. She secretly opened her eyes and met a pair of black and white eyes. They were almost touching. I can even restrain you, let alone those unimportant people. Don't let your imagination run wild. He raised his hand and ruffled her hair. Then, under her stunned gaze, he contentedly tied his belt and tidied up his clothes. Big ice block, he was getting more and more black-bellied. She raised her hand to touch her hot face. Just now when the big ice block bent down close to her, she accidentally saw his lean waist. She really wanted to reach out and poke his bouncy chest. Fortunately, her rationality prevailed, otherwise she would have embarrassed herself. Looking at the person who unscrupulously put on his clothes in front of her, Chu Qingyan raised her hand to cover her face. Where did the cold big ice block from before go? Did she press some button and discover the magical function of the big ice block? How have you been these 2 days? He turned around and sat down in front of her, asking with a faint smile. It's all right. It's just that I can't stand the smell of oil. I think I should be able to achieve the effect of slimming down on this trip. There was no need to talk about the things that were difficult in the temple. She was not a child who tattled all day long. He was very clear about the things that the little fellow encountered in the temple. At this time, when he heard her say this, he sighed in his heart. She was still like this, reporting only the good news and not the bad. He pulled her into his embrace from behind. I'll have someone prepare some food for you. You won't have to suffer here. Also, I hope you can gain a bit more weight. His clothes were still warm from the drying just now. When he touched her skin, it felt very warm. She found a comfortable position in his embrace and said with a smile, Big ice block, do you know that no woman thinks she's thin? Fat people want to lose weight, and thin people also want to lose weight. Xiao Su reached out and pinched her face. After she grimaced, he let go. Too thin. It doesn't feel fleshy when I hug you. Chu Qingyan froze. She heard something incredible. Pervert. Xiao Su calmly accepted it. In front of the person you love, you can still maintain a gentleman's demeanor. Then you should be worried. Listening to his self-righteous words, she rolled her eyes towards the sky. The big ice block has turned black. That's probably how it is. Huddling in his embrace, the cold of the cave was isolated. Her whole body was surrounded by warmth, and she felt a little tired. Go to sleep. When it's almost dawn, I'll send you back. Xiao Su caressed her head, gently coaxing her. She nodded and closed her eyes in relief. Just before she fell asleep, she felt that she seemed to have something to say to him, but forgot it. But she couldn't resist the heavy sleepiness and fell into dreamland. Xiao Su leaned against the stone wall, looking at the unguarded sleeping face in his arms. He hugged her tighter, and then closed his eyes. This sleep was the most peaceful sleep that the two of them had in the past few days. It was peaceful and warm here, but the King of England's residence was in a tense state of alert. No one knew what had happened, so they were all anxiously waiting for dawn. Hong Yi slammed the table. She thought that Lord would return to his room soon, but she never thought that he would not come back. When she was about to go to the study to find him, the entire backyard was surrounded by people led by Huoling. If she wanted to go out, she would be noticed by them, so she could only stay in her room. But there was no need to think about it, her actions must have been exposed. Only she never thought that when Lord realized there was a problem with his body, he didn't choose to find someone to relieve himself, but rather sent people to control everyone. She was really surprised. Could it be that Lord wanted to keep himself pure for Chu Qingyan? What a joke! But that medicine could not be cured by normal methods. Hong Yi was very curious, how did Lord withstand it? She was not worried about her identity being exposed at all because she had already made careful arrangements. It was just that Lord did not fall for it. Chapter 11:14. At dawn, Chu Qingyan returned to the temple. What greeted her was the strange gazes of the two maidservants. "Xining, are your eyes twitching?" Xining snorted, "Master, where did you and His Highness go?" Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. When did this maidservant become so bold? She raised her hand and pinched her nose. "Stop talking nonsense. This miss is going to do her morning class." Xining rubbed her nose and stuck out her tongue at her master's graceful back. She didn't know if it was because she saw De Bing, but Chu Qingyan felt energetic all day. After returning from her morning class, she met Xiao Ran, who was waiting at the door. "What brings you here?" Chu Qingyan smiled as she greeted him. Xiao Ran laughed mischievously. "I've been busy these past 2 days, so I didn't have time to come find you." "That's right, I brought you something good." Actually, it was because Mu Fei didn't allow him to come over. Now that Mu Fei and the Empress had gone to listen to the eminent monk's preaching, he was able to sneak out. Chu Qingyan blinked. "What good thing?" Xiao Ran pretended to be mysterious as he took out the hand behind his back. Dang, 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 it was a jasper flute. Just by looking at the luster, one could tell that it wasn't an ordinary flute. Xiao Ran presented it to her. "This was made by a famous master in our Sichuan. I specially brought it out from the palace." Chu Qingyan was no stranger to flutes. In the past few years, other than weapons, she had come into contact with various musical instruments in Lian City. The reason was simple. It was because her family's De Bing was very good at all musical instruments. She also wanted to learn a little so that when she fought in the Jianghu, she could play the zither and flute with De Bing for the rest of her life. Her memories were interrupted by Xiao Ran as he excitedly said, "Qingyan, let's find a place and I'll play it for you. How about it?" As soon as his voice fell, he didn't allow her to say anything and dragged her into the forest, scaring the two maidservants behind them. Chu Qingyan originally wanted to refuse him, but when she saw the expectant look on his face, she couldn't bear to say it. She asked him to let go of her, and then she followed him into the bamboo forest. After confirming that no one could hear them, the two of them stood still. Xiao Ran held the flute, his palms sweating. "Qingyan, my teacher said that I'm very talented in music. Let me play a song for you." Chu Qingyan thought the nervousness in his voice was because he was too embarrassed to play in public, so she encouraged him, "Relax, I won't laugh at you if you don't play well." Xiao Ran simply couldn't hear what she was saying. After taking a deep breath, he placed the flute horizontally to his lips. After the first note, the rest was much smoother. The crisp and graceful sound of a flute rang out in the forest. Chu Qingyan leaned against the bamboo, squinting her eyes to admire it. It had to be said that this brat's playing was really good, but compared to the big ice cube, he was still lacking. Compared to the big ice cube's playful nature, looking at Xiao Ran's appearance, he should have received professional training. Even an amateur was better than a professional, it was simply infuriating. At this time, Xiao Ran was playing the flute, while carefully sneaking glances at the person in front of him. When she looked over, he immediately looked straight ahead. Chu Qingyan found his small actions funny. Since he was so sincere in inviting her to listen to the song, then she shouldn't disappoint his good intentions. But, why did this song feel more and more wrong the more she listened to it? Phoenix courting Phoenix. Her body stiffened. She hadn't been listening carefully before, but now she found that the more she listened, the more certain she was. Feeling the emotions in her eyes, Xiao Ran's face turned slightly red. She could hear it. "There is a beauty that I can't forget. Not seeing her for a day, I miss her like crazy. The phoenix soars, seeking the phoenix from all over the world. But the beauty is not at the east wall." Playing the zither to replace the words, talking about the heart. "When I see Su Shi, comforting me. Willing to match her virtue, hand in hand. Not being able to fly, causing me to fall." The crisp sound of the flute drifted in the green bamboo forest. It should have been a pleasant thing to listen to, but for Chu Qingyan, it was undoubtedly a shocking thunderbolt. Why didn't he play other songs, but this one? Her mind suddenly remembered the words that the person in the sleeve said to her before leaving. Could it be? Chu Qingyan's eyes widened in disbelief as she thought about what he had just done. It couldn't be. At this time, Xiaoran didn't know what Chu Qingyan was thinking because she was purely moved by him, so she played the flute even more attentively. The phoenix returns to its hometown, roaming the four seas to seek the phoenix. Without meeting the phoenix, without a general, how can I comprehend today's rising hall? With a beautiful lady in the boudoir, the people in the room are poisonous to my heart. Our necks are crossed like mandarin ducks, the two of us fly together. The phoenix comes from my perch, getting the fruit to be my concubine forever. Friendship is harmonious, who knows the person in the middle of the night? Both of my wings flipped over and flew high, without feeling the sorrow of my thoughts. Chu Qingyan couldn't stand still. She really wanted to find a place to hide right now. But she was afraid that it would hurt his self-esteem, so she hesitated. Unknowingly, the song was finished, but she didn't listen to the last part. Xiaoran put down the flute and stood in front of her. He lowered his head and unnaturally asked in a soft voice, "Is it good?" In these 4 years, he grew up very quickly. He was now a head taller than her. When she wanted to listen to him, she had to look up at him. She only noticed this gap now. It's good. She stammered. With Qingyan's affirmation, his eyes instantly lit up. He took a deep breath and then took a step forward to get closer to her. Then what do you think of the song I played? His approach made her involuntarily take a step back. The safe distance between strangers should be 3 steps, friends should be 2 steps, and only intimate lovers should be 1 step. Just now, Xiaoran had already broken the distance between friends, which made her subconsciously want to avoid him. Xiaoran didn't notice her silent rejection. At this time, he was more concerned about her answer. When I was in Jiangnan, I often heard this song being sung on the river. Men, women, old, and young all sang it. It's very catchy. I think you played it very well. She made up a story to reveal that she didn't think in that direction. Actually, she was also tactfully rejecting him. Xiaoran also knew about her in Jiangnan, but he didn't know what she was doing in Jiangnan. So it's like that. But do you know the meaning of this song? He was like a good student with a strong thirst for knowledge as he stared at her without blinking. The young man in front of her had already grown taller. His youthful face had already faded. Now, he was handsome and tall. He had become the ideal husband that all the girls in the capital fought over. Why was her impression of him still stuck in the past? Was it because of this that he had misunderstood? Her mind was like a pile of paste at this time. Being confessed to by a good friend, what was going on? Chapter 11:15. Chu Qingyan looked at Xiaoran, whose face was flushed red but pretended to be calm. His eyes were filled with anticipation, and her heart was uneasy. Was he going to reject him outright? Would she lose a friend in the future? She was silent for a moment before she raised her head. Her brows relaxed, and her eyes were mischievous as she said, "I know, this song is to confess one's love to the person one admires. You specially played it for me today because you want me to learn and play it for your imperial brother when we return, right?" No, Xiaoran hurriedly denied, but she stopped him with one hand. Chu Qingyan shook her head and sighed softly, "Your imperial brother is not romantic at all. Perhaps when I play it, he doesn't even care what I'm playing. Instead, he'll pay attention to where my breath is unstable and where I'm playing the wrong tune. So, I'd better not display my slight skill in front of an expert." She patted Xiaoran's shoulder, who opened his mouth to explain, "Thank you for your good intentions, but this is not suitable for us." "Oh right, I promised the master to copy the scriptures, so I won't waste time here with you. See you later." After she finished speaking, she immediately turned around, not giving him a chance to speak at all. By the time Xiaoran reacted, she had already walked far away. He looked at the flute in his hand, turned around, and heavily kicked the tree trunk. His entire person was dispirited and defeated. I told you not to know how to speak, I told you not to know how to speak. Look, she's gone. After leaving the forest, Chu Qingyan felt as if she had been fished out of the water. Her entire body was covered in sweat. Master, are you very hot? Jasper immediately handed over a handkerchief. Chu Qingyan took it and carelessly wiped her face. She casually replied, the weather is indeed too hot. Xining delivered pastries and said with a smile, Master, you walked so fast just now that the two of us almost couldn't catch up. But what did you say to His Highness the Fourth Prince? We heard the pleasant sound of a flute. When they entered the forest earlier, Xiaoran thought that he did not want others to hear him play, so she sent the two away to guard the entrance of the forest. She sighed softly, and as if she thought of something, she instructed, in the future, if the fourth prince comes to find me, just say that I'm not here, or that it's inconvenient for me. If he gives you anything, don't accept it, understand? Master, what happened between you and His Highness? Xining didn't understand. As soon as the words left her mouth, Jasper pulled her sleeve and warned her. Chu Qingyan rubbed her hair and said gloomily, you don't have to know the reason. Just do as I say. Xining didn't say anything else. She could tell that her master wasn't in a good mood. She thought that His Highness must have made her master angry. She cursed Xiaoran in her heart. Master, Her Highness the Empress sent someone over. She wants you to come over in 2 hours. Jasper reported from the side. Chu Qingyan raised her brows. She didn't expect that after she made a nutritious meal with fruit and vegetable salad for Empress Liang yesterday, she would be called over today. It should be related to this nutritious meal. If she could use this to build a good relationship with Empress Liang, then she wouldn't have to worry about her making a move against her in the future. Alright, you two get ready. Remind me to come out in 2 hours. Right now, I need to catch up on sleep. As she spoke, she changed her clothes and laid down on the bed like a corpse. In order to not let the big ice cube be discovered, she came back alone. But before they parted, the two of them were reluctant to part. Thinking about it now, it was really warm. She couldn't help thinking about the nosebleeds she saw last night. She couldn't help but cover her face. Calm down, calm down. Xining didn't understand why her master had a treacherous smile one moment and then bashful the next. She pulled on Jasper's sleeve. Did master suffer some kind of shock? Jasper shrugged, I also don't know. Xining rubbed her chin as she muttered in her heart. Master's thoughts were really hard to guess. Xiaoran dejectedly returned to his room. He didn't notice that the two subordinates standing by the door were desperately winking at him. With a push, the door was pushed open. He walked in with his head down and poured himself a cup of water. Just as he was about to drink it, he suddenly felt that the atmosphere in the room wasn't right. He looked to the side and revealed a look of surprise. He blurted out, Mufei, why are you here? Consort Yu was sitting on the main seat with Jiang Momo and Jade Rabbit on both sides. It's your day off this morning. Where did you go? Consort Yu looked at him, her voice calm. She came looking for him as soon as she came out of the hall, but she didn't expect to find him. Xiaoran didn't think that his Mufei would suddenly check on him. His expression was erratic. I was bored out of my mind in the room, so I went out for a walk. I think it's you who went to play a tune to please someone. Imperial concubine Yu coldly smiled. Xiaoran was stunned. He raised his head and his voice was filled with disbelief. Mufei, you sent someone to spy on me? Imperial concubine Moon slammed the table heavily. Imperial concubine Mother is concerned about you. You have really grown up. How many times have I told you not to get close to Chu Qingyan and not to interact too much with her? You just don't listen and even came up with, a male phoenix courting a female phoenix. Do you want to destroy the image that Imperial concubine Mother has painstakingly created for you all these years? Coveting your older sister-in-law and ruining your morals, do you want to anger your Mufei to death? Mufei, Qingyan doesn't like Imperial older brother at all. If it wasn't for that Imperial edict, she wouldn't have wronged herself. Xiaoran clenched his fists as he angrily spoke. He wasn't just angry that his Mufei had sent someone to spy on him, he was also angry that his Mufei had stopped him. Consort Yu was so angry that her hands were trembling. The people beside her were so scared that they quickly poured tea to calm her down. Imperial concubine Moon took a sip of tea to calm her nerves. Then, she slammed down the teacup and glared at him, hating him for failing to live up to her expectations. Ran, there are so many girls in the world, so why do you insist on hanging yourself on one? Mufei, I must marry Qing Yan in this lifetime. Otherwise I will regret it for the rest of my life. Xiao Ran stood there with his back straight. His eyes were firm and stubborn as he looked at the person sitting at the table. It was rare for Imperial concubine Moon to see such a resolute side of her son. While she was furious, she was even more shocked. She was shocked that Chu Qingyan had the ability to make her son give up everything to be with her. Imperial concubine Moon vented her anger on Chu Qingyan. Although she was angry, she couldn't have a conflict with her son. The more it was like this, the more she couldn't go against him. Otherwise, it would push things in a direction that couldn't be controlled. She suppressed her emotions. After calming her anger, she leaned back in her chair and revealed an expression that said everything could be discussed. Since you're so stubborn, as a parent, I can't let you suffer any grievances. Forget it, Mufei won't stop you. Xiao Ran never thought that he would get this kind of result. His heart filled with joy. Is what Mufei said true? Of course, if Mufei doesn't love you, who will I love? But, Imperial concubine Moon looked at him with an unfathomable gaze. You must listen to Imperial concubine Mother's wishes in everything. You cannot make your own decisions. You are just a hothead, be careful not to scare her away. Xiao Ran thought about what happened in the bamboo forest today and rubbed his head with a silly smile. Chapter 11:16. After returning to the palace, Xiao Su began a strict investigation, but he found nothing. Huang Yi, think about it again. Hua Ling stood in front of her and spoke with a serious expression. Huang Yi thought for a bit and shook her head. Yesterday was the time when the palace was purchasing ingredients. There were many people going in and out of the kitchen. I also don't know who touched the soup. Xiao Su sat at the head with a frown. He waved his hand at Huang Yi. You can leave first. Huang Yi nodded and then turned to leave the room. Turan walked in at this time and reported, Master, this subordinate has questioned everyone who went in and out of the kitchen and did not find anything suspicious. Hua Ling followed up, too hateful. This actually happened right under our noses and we don't have any clues at all. Seeing Hua Ling's flustered appearance, Turan frowned and said to his master, Master, this subordinate feels that there is a traitor in the palace. Xiao Su raised his hand to rub his tired eyes. From the beginning of the palace until now, this king has not lived in the palace often. It is impossible to guard against someone planting spies in the palace. Then what do we do? Do we just watch as they stir up trouble right under our noses? Hua Ling was angry. Fortunately, it was not poison this time, otherwise their master might be in danger. Ethereal and the others were not here. If something bad happened, what should they do? The earth spirit patted him on the shoulder, telling him to calm down. Xiao Su raised his brows. This time, we've alerted the enemy, so the other side will not act so quickly. However, you must increase your vigilance and strictly inspect all the food in the kitchen. Pay special attention to the women in the inner courtyard. Increasing the patrols in the palace was for the little lass to come back in 2 days and eliminate the threat ahead of time. Turan and Hua Ling looked at each other. There was no doubt that the person who poisoned the soup was one of the maidservants in the courtyard. They hoped that it was a simple matter of wanting to become a phoenix and not a conspiracy. At this time, someone knocked on the door. Hua Ling walked in and said, It's probably Water Spirit. When he opened the door, it was indeed Water Spirit in disguise. She entered the door and bowed to her master. Then, she looked around at everyone and blinked. I heard that something happened in the manor last night. Is Master all right? How could anything happen to Master? Hua Ling snorted. It was clear that he was quite angry at the person who had drugged him. He then asked, why did you come here today? Because the group of Southern Heaven's envoys was about to enter the city, the situation was a bit tense. Therefore, Master told Water Spirit that there was no need for her to run to both sides, and that she could directly send someone to send a message if there was any matter. Water Spirit put away the smile on her face, took a few steps forward, and said to her master, "It's like this, recently, Pigeon Feather discovered that there are many Jianghu people of unknown origins around the right Prime Minister, so I ordered people to investigate. Today, I just got the results. These people are from a mysterious sect in Jianghu called the Moon Palace Sect. They once tried to assassinate you and were also seriously injured by you. Now that they are following the right Prime Minister, I am worried that they will harm us again." The Moon Palace Sect. This name was not unfamiliar to Xiao Su, because one of the little fellow's friends was the young palace master of the Moon Palace Sect, Higashio Motetsu. He thought of the 3-year agreement, and also thought of the surprise and joy the little fellow had after reuniting with Higashio Motetsu in Jiangnan. He wondered how the little fellow would feel if he knew that the Moon Palace sect was loyal to Consort Yu's faction. He did not want the little fellow to be sad because of his friends again. According to what Water Spirit said, what happened back then makes sense. I was wondering why so many assassins wanted to kill us. So it was Consort Yu who was causing trouble behind the scenes. Huo Ling slammed the table heavily, full of anger. Turan spoke, his voice filled with worry, "Master, if the one standing behind the Moon Palace sect is Consort Yu's right Prime Minister, and they have been gathering experts these past few years to persuade the court officials, this subordinate feels that this is very disadvantageous for us." Xiao Su felt that the appetite of Consort Yu's faction was getting bigger and bigger. He was silent for a while before saying, "Water Spirit, continue to follow the Moon Palace sect. See what they are doing for the right Prime Minister. We need to know ourselves as well as the enemy. Huo Ling, contact with Spirit. This king needs to know how much progress has been made in Fuli Mountain." Water Spirit and Huo Ling accepted the order. Xiao Ho continued, "You don't need to worry too much. My imperial father is very smart. He will not allow anyone to stretch their hands too far. Pay close attention to the right Prime Minister's side. If there is anything that can be used, make some movements. When the time comes, we don't need to do anything. My imperial father will handle it himself." For a long time, as an emperor, what he did not want to see the most was for his subjects to overshadow the emperor, or for their appetite to be too big and not be able to abide by their duties. The three nodded. Turan stepped forward and said, "Master, there is one more thing. Chu eldest master and Chu eldest madam will arrive in the capital tomorrow. This subordinate has already arranged for people to pick them up." Xiao Su nodded, his brows relaxing slightly. "Order the stewards and servants to be on high alert. Treat them well and don't let them suffer any grievances. Otherwise, this king will not let them off easily." The three looked at each other. As expected, he loved the house and its crow. Even the young princess consort's parents were taken care of like this. In the past, it was very rare for the lord to give such special orders. Even if the empress personally came to the Wang Fu, she would not receive such treatment. After leaving the room, Huo Ling and the other two walked together. "Say, how did master get the antidote last night?" Huo Ling had been holding it in and did not dare to ask. Now that master's strong aura was gone, she finally spilled it out. Turan did not answer and looked at Water Spirit. Water Spirit laughed. Pigeon Feather reported last night that she saw master's figure in Hugua Temple. She did not say what Yu Shishir wanted to say, but everyone understood tacitly. As expected. "When do you think we'll have a little master?" Huo Ling asked in anticipation. "It should be soon," Shui Ling said with a sneaky smile. So the three of them smiled and went to do their own things. Huo Ling laughed. Master's self-control was too strong, being able to endure until they went to Hugua Temple. As she thought about it, she suddenly saw a person walk out from the corner. Hong Yi. Sir Huo Ling. Hong Yi did not expect to meet him as she bowed with a smile. Huo Ling nodded at her and prepared to leave. "Sir Huo Ling, I heard that Lord wasn't feeling well last night, so someone came to ask us what we did yesterday. What happened? Hong Yi asked with a worried expression. Don't ask about things you shouldn't know. Just abide by your duties. Ever since Hong Yi secretly bullied the young princess Consort, Wu Ling did not like her. After saying this, he left. Hong Yi watched his back as he left. Thinking about the disgust in his eyes, she tightly gripped the handkerchief in her hand. For a long time, she had been the most respected person in the inner courtyard. It was all Chu Qingyan's fault. If it wasn't for her appearance, how could everyone stay away from her? Chu Qingyan, just you wait, you and I cannot live under the same sky. Chapter 11-17. After several days of chanting, Chu Qingyan felt that as long as she shaved her head, she would become a member of Buddhism. Now, she would say, Ba, every time she opened her mouth, Ba, every time she closed her mouth. Fortunately, she could finally be liberated. These few days could be described as an abyss of suffering. Not only did she have to take care of Empress Liang's precious stomach, but she also had to teach the madams and misses of officials about makeup. She also had to watch the women's intrigue. If they were accidentally ignited, she also had to know how to put out the fire. In fact, there were also those love rivals who always wanted to step on her. She thought back to how she was able to leave the mountain safely and steadily. She really burned incense to thank the gods. Master, we have to go back and eat well. Look at how thin you have become. Xining pitifully looked at her master from the side. Chu Qingyan faintly sighed. After staying in Hugua Temple for a period of time, she felt that she was about to grow into a vegetable. She hoped that when they returned, the big ice cube would still be able to recognize her emaciated face. After the honest talk with Dong Ting that night, he never appeared again. After asking a few guards indirectly, she found out that he had already left. When she received the news, she suddenly felt a sense of loss. As for Xiao Ran, ever since that day when he played the song, she was still on guard against him appearing again. But strangely, he never took the initiative to look for her again. Even if he accidentally bumped into her, he didn't stay for long and left. She thought that maybe he was too busy to care about her. But this was also good. She didn't have to bring up the old matter again. However, so many things had happened in just a few days. The reunion of old friends, the sudden confession of friends, the battle of wits and courage with those with bad intentions, she felt that these experiences could be written into a book. Sitting in the carriage, Chu Qingyan looked back at the temple that was gradually getting farther and farther away. She sighed again and then remembered the scene when she met with Su Jian before she left. At that time, Jasper Xining was packing her luggage in the room. When she walked out of the door, she saw Su Jian standing in the courtyard. Why are you here? This place was where believers lived, so there was only one answer. He came to find her. As expected. I heard that you're leaving today. Su Jian looked at her and smiled faintly. Chu Qingyan smiled. Yeah, I've been so busy these past few days praying for blessings, chanting scriptures, and copying scriptures. I didn't realize that time had passed so quickly. Su Jian took a few steps forward and stopped when he was 2 steps away from her. His expression was as emotionless as usual, but his eyes were focused on her. Seeing that he seemed to have something to say, she couldn't help but straighten her back slightly. Her expression also became serious, but her tone still carried a hint of ridicule. What? You have something to tell me? No matter what happens in the future, remember to keep a calm heart and not be arrogant or rash. As Su Jian spoke, he suddenly felt that he was a little strange. Did he come here just to say these things to her? It didn't seem like his usual way of doing things. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. For a senior monk like him, every word he said should have a hidden meaning. She silently noted it down. At this moment, a guard came over to say that they could set off. After sending him away, she raised her head and gave Su Jian a sincere smile. Thank you for your kind intentions, but we have to go. There's no need to be so reluctant. It's only a day's journey from here to the capital by carriage, and your martial arts are so high. Your qigong will only take 2 to 4 hours. Goodbye. I'll go when I have time. Su Jian didn't know why he agreed. The two maidservants had already walked out with their bags. Chu Qingyan waved at him and then left with the others. Chu Qingyan stopped reminiscing about the past, and she suddenly realized something amidst her daze. It was obvious that Su Jian already treated her as a friend. Otherwise, why would he take the initiative to come over and give her instructions? She clapped her hands and smiled. It must be like this. But, she felt that his instructions seemed to be hinting at something. Could it be that something would happen when she returned to the capital? She uneasily pressed her hand to her chest and felt her heart beating wildly. She vigorously shook her head. Impossible, what could happen? She shouldn't scare herself. Once they entered the capital, they all returned home. By the time Chu Qingyan's carriage appeared at the end of the road, it was already evening. Master, it's our prince's carriage. The young princess Consort has returned. Huo Ling looked from afar. His eyes focused and he immediately raised his arms to shout. As soon as he finished speaking, his master hit him with a chestnut. This prince saw it. The meaning was that he didn't need to say anything. Xiao Su and his servants were not the only ones standing at the door to welcome them. Father and Mother Chu were also there. Father Chu stood on the steps in a luxurious brocade robe. He had an imposing aura, but it was broken with a smile. Son-in-law, Kai Kai is home. Unable to contain his excitement, Father Chu jumped to his son-in-law's side and stood on his tiptoes to look. Xiao Su nodded. On the side, Huo Ling, who was holding the bun on his head, swallowed his saliva in shock. In the end, he sighed in agreement. He would only get beaten if he spoke, but Father Chu was able to receive his master's affirmation. It really was different people receiving different treatment. AI. Turan was already used to this. Compared to the young Princess Consort's father, he might as well hit his head against the wall. The sound of the horse's hooves gradually came closer until it finally stopped at the door. Chu Qingyan was awakened from her sleep by two maidservants. When she learned that they were home, she immediately woke up and prepared to jump out of the carriage. However, someone was faster than her and lifted the curtain. Kai, you're back. An incomparably familiar face suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. Father. You're back. As expected, people of different families were bound to enter the same house. Each voice was louder than the last. Chu Qingyan threw herself over with tears in her eyes. Chu Machen's father happily took her and chuckled. My dear daughter, you've gained weight again. Father almost can't carry you anymore. Chu Qingyan's lips twitched when she heard this. Father, I've almost turned into dried vegetables these past 2 days. You're actually insulting me like this, it's a critical hit. On the side, Mother Chu smiled and said, Child's father, don't say that to your child. She's already so big, give her some face. Father Chu had always followed his wife's orders. When he heard this, he immediately stood up and said, Your mother is right, you've almost turned into dried vegetables. Later, I'll have the kitchen make more delicious food for you. I'll make sure you gain back all that meat. Chu Qingyan looked at her father, who changed his expression faster than flipping through a book and continued to twitch her lips. Father, Mother, were you all right on your journey? She asked with concern. Father Chu clapped his hands. All right, of course we were all right. Those bad people were the ones who weren't all right. They actually dared to lie to us and say they were white impermanence's people. Next time, Father will definitely beat them until they're looking for their teeth on the ground. Everyone was amused. Right, after chatting with her parents for so long, where was Big Ice Cube? Her family's Big Ice Cube was blocked in front of his parents-in-law. Due to his status, he couldn't immediately see his little wife, nor could he scold them like an outsider for snatching his wife away. At this moment, he was feeling sullen. Chapter 11:18. As the carriage continued forward, Luo Yun reported, "Your Highness, Hong Yi sent a letter saying that the plan failed." Compared to Luo Yun's disappointment, Empress Liang was calm. It would be abnormal if it succeeded. She was too naive to think that she could succeed in one move. If that's the case, then this consort doesn't need to worry. Luo Yun nodded in understanding. Your Highness is right. His Highness has never been close to women since he was young. We've thought of many methods, but none of them have succeeded. Never been close to women. Empress Liang thought back to that time in the palace, when her son had fallen out with her in order to protect Chu Qingyan. She smiled mockingly. I'm afraid that back then, he hadn't met someone to his liking. What does your Highness mean? Luo Yun thought of someone. Just watch. In the past, he was like a slippery loach. Now that he has a weakness, this consort can be at ease. Empress Liang spoke slowly. She held a mirror in her hand and looked at her own face with a satisfied expression. Luo Yun thought that Chu Qingyan must have done quite a few things to please your Highness recently. It has to be said that your Highness's skin is even better than when you were a young girl. Hearing this praise, Empress Liang smiled at the mirror. The person in the mirror also smiled brightly at her. She stroked her face and said calmly, "Leave that girl Chu Qingyan alive for now. This consort still has a use for her." Luo Yun nodded, then said, "Your Highness, I feel like you've been reborn since your return. When His Majesty sees you, he'll definitely be attracted to you. Even Consort Yu pales in comparison to you." Empress Liang was pleased with herself. These past few days, seeing Consort Yu's sullen and jealous expression makes this consort feel relieved. Go back and have someone prepare a fruit and vegetable meal according to Chu Qingyan's list. Don't delay. Luo Yun agreed with a smile. After giving her instructions, Empress Liang started admiring herself in the mirror again. It had been almost half a day since they returned to the prince's mansion. It was already late at night. After sending off her father and loving mother who were jumping around in the room, Chu Qingyan closed the door and turned to look at the person who was waiting under the light with an ashen face. "Father and mother have left," she said fawningly. "I have eyes to see," he replied. If one listened carefully, they would be able to hear the anger in his words. Jealous? She tilted her head and looked at him, asking the obvious. Xiao Su ignored her. He stood there and said calmly, "Come here." She blinked her eyes in confusion, thinking that she had misheard. Seeing that she didn't move, Xiao Su repeated patiently, "Come here." She slowly walked forward. Why, before she could finish speaking, a black shadow flashed before her eyes, and her entire body was violently pulled into his embrace. The familiar scent of ink filled her nose. Before she could react, she had already fallen into his domineering embrace, as if she was going to be melted into his bones and blood. Only when he touched her delicate body did Xiao Su have a tangible feeling that the little fellow had returned. His hanging heart finally settled down at this moment. This kind of confirmation almost made her unable to breathe. Big ice cube, I can't breathe. She really didn't want to ruin the mood, but she really was going to die. Only then did Xiao Su loosen his grip, but he still kept her in his embrace. Big ice cube, being jealous is good for your health, I won't laugh. After she breathed out, she raised her head with a smile. Before she could finish speaking, she saw a black shadow fall down. Her lips were ice cold, but it was quickly swept away by a hot flame. She was stunned as her eyes widened. In front of her, there was only his closed eyes and the white light that bloomed behind him. It was like the white expanse in her mind. Xiao Su was dissatisfied with her lack of concentration, so he raised his hand to cover her eyes. She could feel the coldness of his hand and the low husky voice that rang in her ears, "Be more serious." She slightly opened her lips, wanting to say something, but she couldn't say a single word from his mouth. Feeling his gentle and urgent kiss, full of affection, she couldn't help but close her eyes and follow his pace. It was like he was asking for the compensation that he could see, but couldn't touch. Over and over again, he pestered her, not letting her leave. In the end, she really didn't have any strength. Her legs were weak and she could only hang on his body. Only then did he reluctantly let her go. At this time, her entire weight was on his body. He held her waist and intimately rubbed his chin against her hair. "I'm jealous, but because they are your parents, I won't affect your reunion," he said in a low voice in her ear. "So after they leave, you'll come here to make your presence known?" She half opened her eyes to stare at him. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and shamefully admitted it. "Humph." She raised her hand to rub her waist. He had almost broken it just now. What a scary guy who couldn't satisfy his desires. Xiao Su couldn't help but reach out to rub her waist. He knew that he hadn't controlled his strength well and felt a little guilty. "I'll be gentler next time." Why did that sound so dirty? She swallowed her saliva. It's okay. Just don't hug me so hard next time." Xiao Su pressed his head against hers and chuckled. "I can't help myself." The big ice cube's voice was already pleasant to the ears, and now that he had lowered his volume, it was filled with affection and adoration. She couldn't take it anymore, and her face turned as red as an apple. Xiao Su chuckled and bit her pink little face. He said possessively, "I really want to eat you up." The thick hint of affection made it impossible for Chu Qingyan to pull her head out of his chest. She was really afraid that she wouldn't be able to control herself and pounce on the big ice cube. That wouldn't be in line with her ladylike nature. Empress Liang led the concubines and the womenfolk of the imperial harem to Hugua Temple to pray for blessings. She received the praises of the common people. Even though the weather was still hot, in the eyes of the common people, they were already very lucky to have the nation's mother who cared so much about them. They didn't ask for rain from the heavens. Not long after the group of people who had fasted and prayed for blessings returned, a large procession slowly approached the capital. "Lord, we'll be able to enter the city tomorrow morning." A subordinate stood by the carriage and reported. "And, send someone to the capital first to confirm the time to depart from the capital." A gentle voice came from the carriage. "Yes." Inside the carriage, Pang Zhijing propped up her chin and rolled her eyes at the calm person in front of her. "Putting on an act, hypocrite. If the princess is dissatisfied with Ben Wang, you can say it." Xiao Ho didn't even look at her and guessed her thoughts. Pang Zhijing made a tisk sound. "I don't want to talk to you." Xiao Ho didn't bicker with her. He flipped through the letters that hadn't been dealt with yet in his hand. The person who said that she didn't want to talk to others still couldn't resist her curiosity. "What are you looking at?" She leaned over to take a peek. Xiao Ho looked up and coldly glanced at her. Pang Zhijing received his displeasure and immediately stood up to distance herself from him. "If you don't want to let me see, then I won't let you see." Petty. Chapter 11:19. Not long after Empress Liang's group returned from Hugua Temple, another piece of news spread. The Southern Sung Kingdom's envoy group was about to arrive at the capital. Compared to the excitement of the first piece of news, the second piece of news was simply resentful. At that time, the Southern Sung Kingdom had initiated the attack, burning, killing, looting, and committing all kinds of crimes. Although half a year had passed, it still hadn't extinguished the anger in the hearts of the commoners. Pang Zhijing sat quietly in the carriage as she looked at the citizens of the Western Lodge who had been isolated from the outside by the guards. Their faces were not welcoming, but filled with caution. She twirled her hair with her fingers and smiled helplessly. The main culprit of the war between the Southern Sung and the Western Lodge should be the ruler at the top, and not her, a cannon fodder who had been pushed out for no reason. Her gaze passed over the sea of commoners outside and landed on the back of the thin and handsome figure riding a white horse in front of her. If it was just based on appearance, Xiao Ho had the most suitable person for her, elegant and handsome. However, although she was an appearance expert, she also had the instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Xiao Ho's thoughts were too deep. She felt that she was invisible in front of him, with no privacy at all. Moreover, he was a tyrannical maniac who could strangle you with a single word. Sometimes, the one riding a white horse wasn't necessarily a prince. It could also be Tang Seng or a hypocrite. Wait, what was she thinking about? Heavens, earth, that's a bad person. Perhaps it was because of the continuous assassination attempts, but in order to ensure her safety, Xiaohou made an exception and allowed her to ride in the same carriage with him. She was almost bewitched by his considerate gentleness. This person always did things with a purpose. Protecting her was just like a bodyguard protecting an item. Ignoring the two maids' advice, Peng Zhijing laid down on the couch without a care for her image. He, can you eat being reserved? Right now, she was only thinking about how to protect her little life. On top of the high wall, Chu Qingyan took advantage of Big Ice Cube's convenience to bring her father up the tower and watch the Southern Sung Kingdom's envoy group enter the city. She couldn't understand why a person like Big Ice Cube, who always kept a clear distinction between public and private affairs, would give in to her father's pleas and open the back door for him. Even now, standing with the soldiers on the city gate tower, she still felt a little unreal. Kai, look. What a fat horse. It must taste delicious. Mr. Chu was drooling at the side. Once these words were said, Huo Ling, who was standing guard on the side, couldn't help laughing. The southern blue country was mostly grasslands and was very suitable for grazing, so the cows, horses, and sheep were all fattened up more than their Sichuan. Dad, didn't you say you wanted to watch the fun? Chu Qingyan smiled. Chu Qian's father's attention immediately shifted from the black horses to the troops with the loud gongs and drums. His line of sight shifted to the tall and burly vanguard soldiers of the Southern Sung Empire, who were walking at the front. Following which, he pouted and said, Kai, these people are so dark. Do they never wash their faces? Puhaha, Huo Ling couldn't take it anymore. He hugged his stomach and laughed until he couldn't straighten his back. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. She really wanted to explain to her father that this wasn't the reason. However, seeing that her father was no longer paying attention to this and was looking elsewhere, she stopped thinking about it. Kai, look. The man riding the white horse is quite handsome. There's even a carriage following behind him. Is that his bride? Mr. Chu blinked his eyes and said, Dad seems to remember that this was how he married Dan Young back then. His words were filled with pride. Chu Qingyan was very surprised by her father's strange imagination. However, when her gaze landed on Xiaohou, she couldn't help but narrow her eyes. It's him. The prince who was secretly harboring evil intentions. That's the third prince, Xiaohou. The carriage following behind him is the princess that the southern blue country sent this time. As she explained, Chu Qingyan suddenly thought of a very important matter. She heard that this princess was about the same age as her. The princes that were suitable for her to marry were only 4. With the Big Ice Block's grudge with the southern blue country, he shouldn't fall for it, right? She comforted herself. Does the marriage for the sake of peace mean marriage? Mr. Chu looked at his daughter with eager eyes. Chu Qingyan dispelled the confusion in her heart and nodded with a smile. Then you and the inverted scallion, when are you getting married? Dad wants to hold a cute granddaughter. Mr. Chu looked at her with sparkling eyes. Chu Qingyan subconsciously corrected him, it's a grandson. As soon as she said that, her face turned red. Dad, what are you saying? You're not allowed to escape, not allowed to be perfunctory, and not allowed to be silent. Mr. Chu harumphed. Chu Qingyan choked on her father's words. Mr. Chu took out the aura of an elder and cleared his throat. Kai, you can't drag this out any longer. Otherwise, when Dad's hair turns white, I won't be able to hold a grandson. Huo Ling, whose ears stood up on the side, interjected, it's a grandson. After saying that, he shrank back to being invisible. Her face turned red. It was fine if Dad wanted to force a marriage, but Huo Ling and the others heard it. This was too embarrassing. She stomped her feet. Dad, you should ask your son-in-law about this. Seeing his daughter's delicate appearance, Mr. Chu wasn't a fool at this crucial moment. That's reasonable. If the inverted scallion doesn't marry you quickly, I'll pinch his ears. Hualing felt that this scene was too beautiful to imagine. Chu Qingyan pretended to be serious as she looked at the guards of honor below. However, her heart was in turmoil. There were some things that she could not say to her father. Actually, Big Ice Cube had told her before that they would get married after the two empires officially came to an agreement. She thought about it and realized that it would be a month later. It should be soon. Soon, the Southern Heavens envoys arrived outside the palace. Under the guidance of the ministers, they entered the throne room. Be smart later. If you meet someone you don't know how to answer, just maintain a smile. Naturally, someone will answer for you. Xiao Ho was the person in charge of escorting the envoys, so he was naturally the leader. He was currently standing beside Pang Zhijing as he seriously instructed her in a low voice. Pang Zhijing curled her lips, but she still replied against her will, I know, I won't joke around with my head. It's good that you know. Xiao Ho wasn't satisfied with her attitude, but he didn't say anything else. He walked forward with large steps, creating a distance between the two of them. Pang Zhijing was still stubborn earlier, but now that she saw him getting further and further away from her and the envoys she wasn't familiar with, she suddenly felt that she no longer felt safe. She couldn't help rubbing her arms as she looked up at the plaque hanging high above. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva as she looked up at the awe-inspiring civil and military officials. How could he abandon her at such a crucial moment? She calmed herself down and pretended to look straight ahead. She expressionlessly walked into the center of Sichuan's highest authority. Xiao Ho glanced at her pale but calm appearance from the corner of his eyes. He felt that it was funny. This little thing who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth finally knew how to be afraid. He shifted his gaze and looked at Xiao Su who was at the front. The corners of his mouth curled up without leaving a trace. Xiao Su, prepare to receive my attack. Chapter 11:20. The summer days were always very long. By the time the sun set, it was already very late. And it was at this time that Xiao Su returned, stepping on the afterglow of the setting sun. Chu Qingyan took the robe he took off and hugged it. Her face was filled with curiosity. Why are you back so early? Didn't you say you were going to receive an envoy? I'm only in charge of the city defense, not the reception. Also, Imperial Father has arranged the reception banquet for 3 days later. You will also have to attend. He raised a hand to pinch her little nose and said with a smile. What? I also have to go. Can I choose to refuse? Chu Qingyan immediately protested. Xiao Su shook his head, you can't. Why? I hate this kind of banquet the most. She was vexed. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, I can pretend to be sick. You can go back and say that I'm not feeling well. I can't be exposed to the wind while recuperating in the Fu. How about it? Nothing much. Xiao Su did not give her any face at all. Humph. Seeing her throw a tantrum, Xiao Su was both pitiful and amused. As long as you're in the capital, you're the princess consort. This is unavoidable. Chu Qingyan was discouraged. Ai, this is the bad thing about marrying into a rich family. You have to pretend to be reserved and virtuous all the time in all kinds of situations. You even have to be pointed at behind your back from time to time. It's so frustrating. I haven't even married you yet. Xiao Su laughed and raised a brow at her, with such a big grudge. It's actually not a big deal if you don't go. It's just that, when she heard the first half, her eyes immediately widened. It's just what? The banquet in 3 days is not as simple as a welcoming banquet. Don't forget, why is this imperial princess here? Can you bear to leave me there alone, N? The last syllable made Chu Qingyan's heart tremble. Imperial princess? She had actually forgotten about this. Go, 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 why wouldn't I go? Chu Qingyan slammed the clothes in her hands on the table and said through gritted teeth. What princess? How dare you covet my man? I'll beat you up if you come in pairs. Pang Zhijing, who was at the post house, suddenly sneezed twice. She rubbed her nose. Who was scolding her? She was distracted for a moment before she noticed the gaze that was staring at her. She immediately regained her senses and almost forgot that there was an uninvited guest in the room. Barging into this princess's room in the middle of the night, aren't you afraid that people will gossip if word gets out? She looked at the person on the seat and said in a bad mood. Seeing that she had regained her sharp tongue, Xiao Ho lazily leaned back in his chair. He did not take her provocation seriously at all. As long as you don't spread it around, no one will know. Moreover, I'm sure that the princess has forgotten that you and I were in the same carriage on this journey. Pang Zhijing secretly gritted his teeth. When it came to venomous tongues, no one dared to be number one if he claimed to be number two. Humph, then get straight to the point. Why are you disturbing this princess's beauty sleep so late at night? She ran to the last chair to sit down and then crossed her arms as she spoke in a very displeased manner. Xiao Ho slightly knitted his brows. Then he slowed down and calmly said, "In 3 days, there will be a banquet set up for you in the palace. In name, it's a welcoming banquet, but it's more accurate to say that it's a banquet set up for you to pick a prince consort. At that time, you just need to state which prince you want to travel the capital with. If my imperial father agrees, then he will be your future prince consort." Pang Zhijing rubbed her hands together and the corners of her lips curled up. It sounds more like a banquet set up at Hongmen. Xiao Ho did not comment. Seeing his calm and composed appearance, she suddenly had a mischievous idea. If I can pick 4 princes, can I pick you? The smile on Xiao Ho's lips froze and then he dangerously narrowed his eyes at her. Nonsense. Frightened by his gaze, Pang Zhijing pressed down on her wildly beating heart and pretended to be disgusted as she said, "TSK, you really can't take a joke. I'm afraid that if I marry you, I won't know when I'll mysteriously go down to drink tea with the king of hell." Xiao Ho did not pay attention to her nonsense, but there was still a trace of sternness in his brows. Pang Zhijing puffed up her cheeks and admitted defeat. All right. We're in a cooperative relationship, so I won't fool around. Just say who you want me to pick, and I'll pick him. Is that all right? I'm very cooperative. No one noticed that the way the two of them interacted right now was like a couple who were at odds with each other. Xiao Su recovered his gentle appearance. He looked into her eyes and said a name, the King of England, Xiao Su. Aha! That lord with the ice-cold mask. Today in the royal court, she had a particularly deep impression of this person because that mask was too eye-catching. Moreover, his entire body was like a piece of iron. If it wasn't for that mask, she felt that she could have seen the words, "Strangers do not approach," written on his face. She stood up and circled around the chair, indignantly saying, "I remember that he's the undefeated god of war who defeated Nansong. You actually want me to pick him? When the time comes, won't he break my neck on the spot? You have an opinion. But even if you have an opinion, you can only pretend that you don't have an opinion." Seeing her flustered and uneasy, stomping her feet and muttering, Xiao Ho spread his hands and blocked all of her words of protest. "Xiao Ho, you're really too, ah." She was just about to point at his nose and scold him, but unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, the person who was sitting on the chair suddenly appeared in front of her. Teleportation. You really are too handsome. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva and chuckled. Her heart was filled with fear and she only wanted him to quickly leave her. Seeing him slowly approach her, she could only lean back. Her waist couldn't take it and her entire body fell into the chair, but the person in front of her still did not let her go. When there was only a thin sheet of paper between them, his lips curled as he coldly said, "Don't think that this king can't control you just because you're in the capital. Your every move is under this king's eyes. Put away your pitiful and arrogant thoughts. As long as you dare to run, the first thing that will be your neck being broken will be your legs being cut off. If you don't believe me, you can try it." After saying this, Xiao Ho stood up as if nothing had happened. He no longer looked at her as he turned around and jumped out the window. The wind blew in and ruffled the gauze. The gauze fluttered in front of her eyes, but at this time, Pang Zhijing was in a daze as she placed her hand over her heart. Her expression went from sluggish to confused, to shocked, and finally exploded. God damn, when this hypocrite approached, she actually felt her heart fiercely beating. He was clearly threatening her. Could it be that she had already become immune to his warnings every 2 to 3 days? This was too terrifying. She jumped out of the chair with a face full of tears. It's over, water must have entered her brain. No, it must be that she had no resistance against beautiful men. After finishing this job, she had to leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, if she didn't take her medicine, she would report to hell. Saving her life was more important. Chapter 11:21. The summer night was very hot. There was no wind at all. The sand on the ground was still warm, and one could feel the heat from the soles of their feet when they stepped on it. Chu Qingyan was sitting quietly in the courtyard. She was thinking about the scene of Xiao Ran playing the flute that day in the bamboo forest. The reason why she didn't want to go to the banquet was because she didn't want to see Xiao Ran again. She had already sensed his feelings for her, and under the premise that she didn't expose him, she had to avoid him and cut off his thoughts. Otherwise, it would be awkward when they meet in the future. Should she tell Big Ice Cube about this matter? But would this affect the friendship between the brothers? She suddenly felt a bit sad. These two brothers were very close, but their mother was fighting fiercely. How long could this temporary peace last? Would Empress Liang allow Big Ice Cube to stay away from the court? Would Sichuan Emperor and Consort you let Big Ice Cube off from scolding him? Although it was peaceful now, the future was uncertain. Chu Qingyan sighed heavily. Xiao Su felt refreshed after bathing. He was about to sit down when he received news that his little fellow was in the courtyard mourning. He put down the cloth in his hand and strode out of the room. He immediately saw the little fellow propping up her chin and looking at the moon. He walked over and looked down to see the little fellow frowning and distressed. He couldn't help but ask, "What are you thinking about?" Big Ice Cube did not deliberately lower his footsteps, so she knew when he came close. "Thinking about you." She turned and hung on him like a sloth. Then she put her nose close to his chest and deeply inhaled the pleasant smell on his body. The little fellow's dependent appearance made Xiao Su's wife-doting skills come online again. He did not avoid it. After all, they were in his own home. Hence, he picked her up and sat down on her original seat. He reached out to pinch her tender cheeks and said in a pampering voice, "You're already so old, but you're still like a child." Big Ice Cube controlled his strength very well. He was able to pinch her flesh and not let her feel any pain. She only felt that her face was itchy. She blinked and whined, "Let me tell you, when you marry a wife, you have to dote on her like a child. Otherwise, my parents worked so hard to raise me, but I left them and went to a new home to live with a group of people who are not related to me by blood. You, on the other hand, got a housekeeper for free. Not only did she manage the house for your man, but she also had to carry on the family line for you. Isn't that enough for you men to treat us better?" It was obvious that the little fellow was not in a good mood tonight. Xiao Su could tell what she was feeling from her muttering, but he did not ask why. He raised his hand to tuck the strands of hair that had fallen by her ear, and then smiled faintly and said, "Your parents are my parents. I will treat them with the same respect and filial piety that you treat them." He had never enjoyed the love of his parents. It was the little fellow's parents who made up for his longing for kinship. In his heart, he had long regarded them as his own parents. That's more like it. She felt sweet in her heart. Actually, from the daily interactions between him and her parents, she believed that the Big Ice Cube would treat them well even without him saying it. But it feels like I'll have to raise a lot of children in the future. Xiao Su pretended to be distressed. What children? Who wants to give birth to your children? She blushed and grabbed the clothes on his chest, pretending to be angry. Xiao Su held her hand, "It's okay if you don't give birth. Then I'll only dote on you for the rest of my life, my child." The Big Ice Cube was really getting more and more daring, he dared to say anything. She buried her face in his chest, and stiffly changed the topic, have you seen that princess? How does she look? Isn't she very beautiful? Xiao Su chuckled lowly. Her ears were filled with that intoxicating laughter. Chu Qingyan lightly pushed him. What are you laughing at? Do you want to hear the truth or a lie? I'll listen to the lie first. Let's see what you can do. I've seen that princess. She's average looking, not as beautiful as you. Xiao Su said with a smile. Then I want to hear the truth. Let's see how you praise her. I think that people of the royal bloodline should not look bad. Perhaps the emperor could look a little shabby. After all, the royal bloodline was there, and they could not choose. But men were all lustful, and the women around them should be good-looking. So the princes and princesses born from them should at least be guaranteed to be good-looking. Xiao Su did not joke with her. The truth is, I didn't even look at that princess. He was sizing up the envoys who came to negotiate the peace the entire time. And in his opinion, it didn't matter if they were men or women, because he only had eyes for his little fellow. Well done. She generously rewarded him with a big kiss on the face. Are you happy? Then can you share with me, what are you worried about tonight? His face was still wet from her kiss just now, and his heart softened. But he slowly withdrew the smile on his face and looked at her seriously. The person in front of her had a gaze as gentle as water. Thinking about how he was originally a cold person, but for her, he was willing to put down his status to make her happy, she felt very warm. But there were a lot of things in her heart, and she did not know where to start. This fasting trip really carried too many unpleasant memories. Big Ice Cube, I met Dong Ting at Hugua Temple. He disguised himself as one of Xiao Ran's guards. Xiao Su was a very smart person. With just one sentence, he was able to get all the information in the book. Just a soft, Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised and could not help but add, the Moon Palace seems to be working for a certain faction in the imperial court. Xiao Su rubbed her head, I know all this. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you would think too much and be sad, but I didn't expect him to reveal it to you. Chu Qingyan leaned into his embrace and was a bit stunned. So the big ice cube knew all about it. I'm a bit sad. My best friend is going against the person I love the most. Ian, you don't have to feel too much pressure. I'm here for everything. Alright. I'll take a break tomorrow. I'll take you to see Shanghai, Glutinous Rice Ball, and the others. At this time, the only thing he could think of was to use this to divert her attention. The little fellow was a sentimental person. Once she had something on her mind, she would keep it to herself. It was better to let her walk around with those pets. Good. I haven't seen them in a long time. Are they obedient? She asked happily. They're very obedient. They just want to see you. When Xiao Su heard Hua Ling's report, he could feel his subordinate's head explode with a headache. Alright, I'll take them to play tomorrow. Nestled in his embrace, the fresh scent of ink lingered. Drowsiness came over her and she did not have the energy to talk about Xiao Ran. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow who was sleeping in his embrace and could not help but close his arms. Chapter 11:22. At this moment, in the palace. The Sichuan emperor sat on the dragon throne with his brows slightly furrowed, as if he was thinking about something. Your Majesty, it's already midnight. Do you want to rest? Eunuch Chao bowed and asked softly and respectfully. Ever since His Majesty came back from the throne room today, he had been in deep thought. No one knew what he was thinking, but Chao Ji didn't dare to ask. His experience told him that he shouldn't guess the emperor's thoughts. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lived until now. Chao Ji. The Sichuan emperor suddenly spoke slowly. Chao Ji immediately responded, Your Majesty, what are your orders? Today, I saw the princess of Nan Sung in the hall. Which prince do you think is more suitable for her? The Sichuan emperor's gaze fell on Chao Ji, who had followed him for many years. There was a faint smile in his eyes, but Chao Ji didn't dare to look directly at him. When Chao Ji heard this, he muttered, "The princess of Nansung is about 14 or 15 years old. The princes who match her age are the first prince, second prince, third prince, and fourth prince." The Sichuan emperor was amused by his answer. Chao Ji, you're still the same. You can't even make a sound after being hit with a stick. Chao Ji knew that his answer was the same as not answering, but he really didn't know how to answer. Moreover, he felt that as a servant, how could he guess his master's thoughts? It was better to pretend that he didn't know anything. "Your Majesty, these 4 princes are too outstanding. I really don't know who to say. Your Majesty, please forgive me." Chao Ji immediately asked for forgiveness. The Sichuan emperor shook his head. "Chao Ji, you're too timid. However, being timid has its benefits. Otherwise, you would be the only one left when there were so many people following me. That's because your Majesty is fond of me." Chao Ji replied with a smile. The Sichuan emperor played with the 2 peach pits in his hand and slowly stopped smiling. "However, you're wrong about one thing." Chao Ji looked at him in confusion. "Since the Southern Blue Empire is here to negotiate peace, then we will be the one to choose a prince to match her. They simply don't have the qualifications to marry our most outstanding prince." Sichuan emperor coldly smiled, his eyes filled with disdain towards the arrogant group of envoys from the Southern Blue Empire. Since they had already come to surrender and negotiate for peace, he had to correct his attitude and wait for 2 or 3 days before summoning them. Chao Ji understood what His Majesty meant. That was to say, the prince who was the most mediocre or the least powerful would become the marriage partner. The Southern Blue Empire was a rude and unreasonable country. If it wasn't for His Royal Highness taking action, then Sichuan would have suffered disastrous losses. Although they were defeated, their prestige was still there. Who knew when they might rise again, so they had to be on guard. As for the prince with the least real power, he would be able to restrain the Southern Blue Princess and temporarily ensure that the 2 countries would live in peace for the next few decades. Therefore, the first to be ruled out was Xiao Ran, the 4th prince. Everyone knew that His Majesty doted on the 4th prince. Who knew, he might even develop in the direction of the future crown prince. His Royal Highness should also be out of the question. His Majesty had always been wary of him. Didn't that leave only the 2nd prince and the 3rd prince? Sichuan emperor suddenly spoke, this time, has done well in receiving the envoys. Originally, he was also the most suitable candidate for the marriage. However, he is weak and sickly. I'm afraid he's not suitable for such a tiring marriage. It's better for Zhen to find a suitable marriage for him in the future." Chao Ji lowered his head. His Majesty didn't want the 3rd prince to marry into the Southern Blue Empire, which was why he gave such a reason. A suitable marriage would most likely be to randomly choose a dutiful girl from the aristocratic families. At this time, Sichuan emperor continued, "Now, the one that gives Zhen a headache is my 2nd son. Yao has been hanging around the brothels all day long and doesn't do proper work. Zhen has let him go outside for more than 20 years. It's time for him to settle down. Xiao Yao's son had been dissolute outside for so many years and was not attached to power. This made Sichuan emperor very relieved. Therefore, he placed a ticking time bomb by Xiao Yao's side. This ticking time bomb could occasionally restrain him and help him monitor him. "Chao Ji, go to Chaoyang Palace tonight." Yes. Sichuan emperor's idea was very good. However, he didn't know that there were other people behind him who were secretly pushing him. Then, the development of the matter would deviate from the track he expected. Moon Palace. What? His Majesty went to the Empress's place again tonight? Consort, you wanted to stare a few holes into the reporting eunuch in front of her. Yes. 15 minutes ago, His Majesty left for Chaoyang Palace. The little eunuch trembled under Consort Yu's resentful gaze and stammered clearly. At this time, Nanny Jiang asked the little eunuch to leave. She turned to her master who was on the verge of anger and advised, "His Majesty has been staying in the Moon Palace for a while now. Presumably, His Majesty didn't want his subordinates to be disappointed this time because His Royal Highness contributed greatly to the peace negotiations. Therefore, His Majesty didn't want his subordinates to be disappointed, so he stayed in Chaoyang Palace. Nyang Nyang, don't worry. Perhaps, His Majesty will come to our Moon Palace tomorrow night. Consort, you simply couldn't listen at this time. She shook her head and said, His Majesty stayed in the Empress's palace for 2 consecutive nights. This was impossible in the past. It must be because that stinky girl, Chu Qingyan, offered a lot of good things to the Empress when she was in Hugua Temple. In just a few short days, the Empress has taken care of herself so well that she looks like an unmarried woman. She thought back to when she was in Hugua Temple. Every time the Empress appeared in front of her, her face would become more and more glossy and translucent. It wasn't an appearance that a married woman should have. It was simply enviable. It must be the Empress's seductive appearance that made His Majesty return to the same old grass. Consort, you became more and more angry as she spoke. Even the Sichuan Emperor was being made up. Nanny Jiang also knew that her master was right, but she couldn't agree. Wouldn't that be adding fuel to the fire? At this time, Jade Rabbit appeared like a life-saving straw. Nyang Nyang, His Highness the 4th Prince requests an audience. Consort, you stilled. Why was Ranner looking for her so late at night? Let His Highness come in. Consort, you suppressed her anger. Compared to this kind of jealousy, her son was more important. Xiao Ran strode in. When he saw his mother sitting at the head, he revealed an ashamed expression, I'm looking for Mufei so late at night to talk about something. It's really I's fault for disturbing your rest. We're mother and son, there's no need to be so formal. Come, sit next to mother. She gestured for him to sit down. Then she asked with concern, did something trouble you? When Consort you finished speaking, Xiao Ran scratched his head in embarrassment, I came because of what you said in Hugua Temple last time. Consort you heard this and her eyes flashed. Last time in the temple, Ranner had played a song to express his love. He was so daring that it was shocking. In order to prevent his foolish actions from reaching the ears of His Majesty or the people of the world, she had first used words to calm him down and stop him from finding Chu Qingyan. This was just a temporary measure. However, she had an idea now. Chapter 1123. Although Imperial Concubine Moon had an idea in her heart, she still wanted to confirm something. Ranner, tell mother the truth. Do you really only want Chu Qingyan? Consort you seriously looked into his eyes. Seeing his mother like this, it was clear that she already had a plan. Xiao Ran's heart skipped a beat as he nodded without any hesitation to express his feelings, Mother, I is serious. I only want Chu Qingyan. Consort you felt like a grown child should not be kept at home. Alright, Mother will help Chu Qingyan and your eldest brother break off the engagement, but you have to promise Mother a few things. Consort you said with a serious expression. Alright, as long as you can get Qingyan to cancel the engagement, even if there are 1,000 or 100 requests, I will agree. Xiao Ran agreed readily. Alright. First, Chu Qingyan cannot be the main consort. At most, she can be a side consort. This, Xiao Ran was speechless. He could not agree to this condition at all. Consort you shook her head. Her son was still too young, if you don't agree to this, then there's no need to talk about it. Seeing that his mother did not allow him to refute, Xiao Ran could only nod, all right. Whether it was the main consort or side consort, as long as he treated Qingyan well and doted on her, status was not important. The second thing is to marry the daughter of the Minister of Rights as the main consort. Consort you looked into his eyes and said each word clearly. She wanted to see how far her son could go for that brat Chu Qingyan. Jing Jin's daughter. Jing Mingzhu. Xiao Ran did not have any impression of this person. Thinking back, he could not even remember what she looked like. Xiao Ran immediately rejected her after she finished speaking, Mother, I can't change it to another thing. What was the point of marrying someone he did not even like as a consort? Consort you shook her head again. Her sons still did not understand her good intentions. There were 6 ministries in the court, but they were divided into 2 factions. The Ministry of Appointments, Ministry of Rights, and Ministry of War were led by the Ministry of Rights. The Ministry of Revenue, Ministry of Works, and Ministry of Justice were led by the Ministry of Works. If they could become in-laws with the Ministry of Rights, then they would have the power of the 3 ministries in their hands. At that time, their influence would expand. In the future, no matter what they did, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. Imperial Mother will say the same thing. You can't do these things, and Imperial Mother can't help you. Consort Yu leisurely sipped her tea as she looked at Xiao Ran standing there hesitantly. If Xiao Ran could agree to these conditions, then not only would Chu Qingyan not be the official consort, but she would also achieve her goal of a marriage alliance. If he did not agree, then it was fine. She would be able to completely cut off his thoughts for Chu Qingyan. This was also a very good harvest. Therefore, no matter what Xiao Ran chose, she would be able to achieve her goal. Although her heart ached for her son's dilemma, she felt that to achieve great things, one must first have a strong will. Only then could one have a strong mind to face the storms of the future. Xiao Ran was currently in a dilemma. On one side, it was the girl he loved. On the other side, he wanted to sacrifice his marriage for profit. Mother smiled. Although she looked gentle and easy to discuss, Xiao Ran was very clear that his mother was someone who would not go back on her words. Xiao Ran gritted his teeth. Although he had to marry a woman he had no feelings for as his official wife, it was enough as long as he could marry Qingyan. Moreover, he knew from a young age that as a member of the imperial family, he had to be prepared to sacrifice himself at any time. As long as he could have Qingyan by his side, it was already good enough. Thus, under Consort Yu's gaze, he slowly nodded, I agree to marry Jing Mingzhu. As expected of mother's good child. I'll owe you the third matter first. Don't worry, mother will help you get Chu Qingyan over. Consort Yu raised her hand to let him come closer. She then reached out to stroke his head, expressing her approval and praise. Compared to Consort Yu's joy, Xiao Ran was smiling on the side. Alright, it's getting late. You should go back and rest. Consort Yu helped him tidy up his clothes and then ordered someone to bring him back with a lantern. Xiao Ran left the Moon Palace like a walking corpse. He walked aimlessly. At this time, it was as if a part of his heart had been dug out. So, growth was something that needed to be exchanged for so many things. For the first time, he felt that he was insignificant and powerless. However, as long as Qingyan was by his side, it was fine. He could give up on anything. After comforting himself, his light footsteps slowly landed on solid ground. Only then did he realize that he had walked on the wrong line of defense. Sangyu, let's go back. Yes, Your Highness. Sangyu, who had been following him in the shadows, replied in a low voice. If the way to walk in life was to constantly make choices, giving up on what you didn't want to give up and choosing what you wanted, then one day, what you wanted would also be placed on the side you didn't want to give up and then be given up. Thus, it was a mistake from the beginning. Some things couldn't be placed on the list of choices. For example, lovers, family, friends. But when Xiao Ran finally understood this truth, it was already too late. Your Highness, this servant saw that His Highness didn't look too good when he left just now. Jade Rabbit revealed a worried expression. Consort Yu sighed softly, as a member of the imperial family, he was born blessed by the heavens. On the surface, he doesn't have to worry about food and clothing, but ordinary people don't understand how careful we have to be with every step we take. Many times, glory, splendor, and wealth have to be exchanged for through sacrifice. However, those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. Ranner is still young and his heart isn't firm enough. Once he hits the wall a few times, he will be able to adapt to this world where the strong preys on the weak. What she wanted wasn't just to defeat Empress Liang and become the head of the harem. She also wanted to become the most respected woman in the world. Mama Jiang returned to the main hall and reported that His Highness had returned to his chambers. Then, Your Highness, how do you want to help His Highness? You all just wait. You'll see the results in 3 days. 3 days later, she wanted to humiliate Empress Liang and trample Xiao Su's arrogance into the mud. When she thought of this, all her anger disappeared. Consort Yu leaned back on the chaise lounge and smiled unscrupulously. Chu Qingyan probably didn't expect that she and her big ice cube, who didn't kill or commit arson, would always have people thinking about them. It was as if they couldn't wait to burn their bones and scatter their ashes. Because Big Ice Cube was going to see Little Hai and the others today, Chu Qingyan woke up early in the morning. Because Big Ice Cube had something to deal with, he would come over later. Thus, she enjoyed her breakfast first. Is there any progress on that matter? Chu Qingyan asked. She was asking about the incident where Big Ice Cube had been drugged last time. As soon as she returned, she started investigating. Although the other party didn't succeed, this kind of thing would happen again. She wouldn't allow anyone to use such a despicable method to steal her big ice cube. Jasper, who was waiting on the side, nodded. I've found a list of all the people who went in and out of the kitchen when Huang Yi was boiling soup that day. Jasper had also just received this information. She had already prepared it and handed it over. Chu Qingyan put down her chopsticks and took a rough glance. Finally, her gaze fell on a name and she slowly narrowed her eyes. Chapter 1124. Big Ice Cube was a man. Perhaps he was like a fish in water in the imperial court and on the battlefield, but in this kind of inner courtyard, especially when it came to women, he lacked experience. It was normal for him to not be able to find that person after so many days. Only women understood women. As a woman, with just a glance or a movement, they could guess what she was thinking. So sometimes, to men, a woman's intuition was very frightening. A man's subtle movement could be analyzed by them. Master, is there a problem with the name list? Jasper saw that her master was deep in thought and couldn't help but ask. Focus on this person. Her slender finger landed on a name. Jasper looked down and saw that it was Hong Yi. Even if we can't find out whether she has anything to do with this matter, we should take this opportunity to investigate the person behind her. A fox would eventually reveal its tail. She now had a premonition that if she kept Hong Yi in the prince's residence, something would happen. This subordinate understands. Jasper replied. If she has nothing to do with this matter, then it's fine. If she has something to do with it, this time I won't let her off easily. Chu Qingyan picked up her chopsticks again. Jasper asked, Master, why don't you suspect Huang Yi? Chu Qingyan chuckled, logically speaking, she doesn't have a motive. Moreover, I believe in people's eyes. If my judgment is wrong, then it proves that my eyesight is too bad. Jasper understood that her master regarded Huang Yi as a trustworthy person. It's early in the morning, can't you let me sleep peacefully? Steady. Sense. Is that so? In a carriage heading towards the city gate, an incomparably sorrowful voice came out. Pang Zhijing glared at the leisurely person in front of her with half-opened eyes. Her expression was terrible. She was easy to talk to, but she had a bad temper when she woke up. She would fight with anyone who dared to disturb her sleep. Unfortunately, the person in front of her was too strong. He could kill her with just a finger. Although she was still in a semi-conscious state, she still had some self-awareness. She would not hit a rock with an egg. She only dared to show off her power with her mouth. Your Highness seems to be a bit angry. Have the servants prepare some soup to clear the heat and detoxify. Xiao Ho directly ignored her harmless gaze. Pang Zhijing took a deep breath. At this moment, she was already extremely irritable. Xiao Ho, you sneaked into my room last night and caused me to not be able to sleep well. Now that my back is aching, you woke me up early in the morning. Is it really okay for you to appear and disappear like a ghost? Is it really okay to disturb someone's sleep? The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. When the subordinates and servants beside the two heard this ambiguous sentence, they looked at each other in dismay. They didn't dare to raise their heads for fear that they would be silenced. Xiao Ho's eyes twitched for the first time. This girl really dared to say anything. After saying that, her anger was smoothed out. Pang Zhijing was a bit more awake. She opened her eyes and found Xiao Ho's face as black as the bottom of a pot. Although she didn't know what kind of ambiguous words she had said, she was very happy to see him deflated at this time. After finishing breakfast in the carriage, Pang Zhijing realized that the person in front of her had treated her as if she was invisible. He didn't even look at her. She was unhappy. Why could the initiator sit with a clear conscience while she, a pitiful child, had to travel a long distance to an unknown place? If she was sold, wouldn't she cry to the heavens? Hey, where are we going? She poked his shoulder and asked curiously. Xiao Ho felt like his shoulder was being scratched by a cat's paw. He leaned to the side to avoid her touch before answering her question, the suburbs. What are you doing? She casually asked. Xiao Ho looked at her pure and innocent eyes and slowly said, bringing you to meet your future husband. Who? That King of England? She took a long time to react. Xiao Ho didn't comment. Pang Zhijing poured out a string of questions. Why are you running to the suburbs to meet him? Shouldn't he be in the palace? Are you up to something again? Xiao Ho was a bit disgusted. You have too many questions. Shut up. Being rebuffed, Pang Zhijing rubbed her nose and returned to her seat. If you don't say it, I won't care if you expose yourself later. She still knows how to threaten him. Xiao Ho sneered. This imperial brother of mine is accompanying his fiancée for a walk. You just pretended to meet by chance and attracted his attention. That's your mission. Fiancée? You mean that he already has a fiancée? Pang Zhijing's eyes widened and she jumped up. Then you still want me to ruin their relationship? This is a third party. A third party is not allowed to exist. That's too hateful. I refuse to cooperate with you. Xiao Ho looked at her coldly. You have a backbone, but do you want to die? At this time, Pang Zhijing's hot-headed and angry emotions were poured down by him, making her heart feel cold. A person can have everything, but they can't have a weak spot. Hearing her muttering this sentence, Xiao Ho pulled the corner of his mouth and didn't say anything else. He knew that she had already admitted defeat and he didn't need to waste his breath. This sentence that didn't attract much attention in his life had become a curse that he would never forget. Pang Zhijing, who was nestled in a corner of the carriage, looked at the tassels on the curtain and fell into a daze. She heard the sound of books being flipped in her ears. She was a person who couldn't bear to be quiet. Reading in the carriage will make you short-sighted. You won't be able to see far away. She said in a bad mood. Xiao Ho's fingers paused and he looked at her. We martial artists have good eyesight. What he meant was that she didn't need to meddle in other people's business. Ha! Consider it my wishful thinking. I don't care about you. Pang Zhijing could see the cold disdain in his eyes. She was like an angry rabbit as she grumbled at him. Xiao Ho frowned slightly. This stinky girl's voice was really loud. The people following closely outside the carriage were mostly part of the mission to welcome the envoys. They were already used to the interaction between the two. Because there were many people going to the market, the carriage moved slowly and time passed slowly. Pang Zhijing also didn't have much patience. There was only Xiao Ho and her in the carriage, so she could only thicken her skin and talk to him. Xiao Ho, I want to ask you a question. You can choose to answer or not. She made this statement first so that he wouldn't ignore her later and lose face. Without waiting for him to answer, she said bluntly, why do you spend so much effort to kill the King of England? I don't think it's just because of that high position. If that's the case, your real opponent should be Xiao Ran. I heard that he is very favored. No one had ever asked him this question before, but this answer had always been engraved in the depths of his heart, in his soul. Pang Zhijing waited for a while. She thought that he wouldn't answer and was about to give up. However, at this moment, she saw the person in front of her slowly raise his head. His eyes were as cold as water, but the corners of his mouth were slightly curved into a shallow arc. It seemed like a smile, but also like a sneer. If I said that I have a blood feud with him, would you believe me? Chapter 11:25. At this moment, Xiao Su was leading the Chu father and daughter pair to the outskirts of the city. Inside the spacious carriage, Father Chu had been stuffing melons and fruits into his mouth. He hadn't stopped eating since they left the carriage. "Father, these are iced. Eat less, it's not good for your health." Chu Qingyan looked at her father's eating speed and sighed in amazement. Father Chu finished the watermelon in his hand and wiped his mouth in satisfaction. He then looked at his son-in-law. "Is this how Kai Kai usually talks about you? Like a heavy downpour, pitter-patter?" Xiao Su felt that his father-in-law's description was very vivid. His lips curved slightly. "She doesn't treat me like this." Sure enough, the love for parents is unique. Even you, the future husband, can't enjoy it. Father Chu patted his round belly and chuckled. Chu Qingyan and her family's big ice cube looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Because he heard that they were going to see Xiao Hai and the rest, her father had been waiting in her courtyard since early in the morning. No matter what, he had to come along. Because Xiao Hai and the glutinous rice ball were too special, if they were raised by their side, it would be fine if it aroused suspicion, but if someone wanted to take them for themselves, then it would be bad. Therefore, the big ice cube meant to raise them in the outskirts with special people watching over them. There wouldn't be any accidents. When Chu Qingyan and the rest stood at the foot of a small hill, they saw a few white balls running towards her from afar. Looking up, they saw a black dot making a diving motion. Meeting again after a long separation, they were filled with joy. "Awu, xiu xiu," 3 big white balls pounced on her in an instant and stuck out their tongues to lick her face and hands. They surrounded her so tightly that she couldn't be seen anymore. As for the black dot in the sky, it domineeringly picked up the white ball and threw it backwards, wanting to occupy a favorable geographical position. Unfortunately, after picking up one, another would take its place. After picking up another, the one that was thrown away would take its place. Little C's originally dark face became even darker. At this moment, Father Chu lamented that he should be the one who was pounced on. However, his jealous son-in-law had already kicked away one big white ball in each hand, finally revealing his little fellow. Then, he pulled her into his arms and used his sleeve to wipe the saliva on her face. Then, he coldly looked at the few white balls that were sprawled on all fours. A gentleman doesn't use his mouth and doesn't use his hands. Stand there obediently. The 3 snowflake cakes rolled their eyes. "Awu," Xiao Hai swept its wings. "Xiu xiu," it was as if they collectively expressed their strong disdain for Xiao Su. Tisk, Chu Qingyan was amused, but she was more concerned with her pets. She bent over and patted the few lying on the ground. "Hurry, get up. Let me see how you've been recently." The 3 of them looked at each other and continued to lie down. Awu, translation, they need master's kisses and hugs to get up. Chu Qingyan laughed loudly. Xiao Su's face darkened. They were the descendants of the Snow Wolf King. Was it really okay to act coquettishly like this? She reached out and hugged them. She hadn't seen them for many days and missed them. Thus, they immediately jumped up happily and circled around her, wagging their tails desperately. If someone didn't know better, they would have thought that they were domestic huskies. Xiao Hai originally despised glutinous rice ball and the others acting coquettishly, but seeing that it was so effective, it tilted its head and lay on the ground. This time, Xiao Su's face darkened even more. In any case, he was the king of eagles. How could he compete with a few wolf pups here? Xiao Hai, glutinous rice ball, and the other 2 expressed their disdain. "You're the undefeatable god of war, the cold-blooded lord, but you're still jealous in front of my master. You're the pot calling the kettle black." If not for the fact that the little fellow liked them very much, he really wanted to send them to Mount Fuli to mine. This forest was relatively hidden and often had wild beasts. Sometimes, it would be used as a place for emperors to go out of the palace to hunt. Usually, no one would come here, so Chu Qingyan was very relieved that Xiao Su left them here. One of the itineraries today was to have a picnic on the grass. Jasper and Xining took out many pastries and snacks from the food box. Chu Qingyan took a box of jerky and fed it to Xiaohai, who was standing beside her, and glutinous rice ball, who was lying under her legs. I remember when I took them in back then, glutinous rice ball and the other two were still small. They really looked like puppies. I didn't expect them to grow so big after half a year. She looked at Bai Yutang and Snow Flower Cake, who were playing with her father on the grass, and sighed. Xiao Su glanced at the female glutinous rice ball, who was leaning on the little fellow, and then looked away. He sat on the tree trunk and smiled slightly. Indeed, time flies. It's gone in the blink of an eye. Chu Qingyan smiled and nodded. She continued to feed the two of them jerky and rubbed their heads. Big Ice Cube, let's send Xiaohai and Bai Yutang back to Lian City first. When Xiao Su was drinking tea, he suddenly heard her and looked at her in confusion. Sensing his silent inquiry, the two of them turned their heads and looked unhappy. She sighed softly and said, Big Ice Cube, if we can go back to Lian City earlier, the four of them can go back earlier, and we can reunite as soon as possible. But if we can't leave the capital as planned, it means that we might have encountered some difficulties. If they stay in the capital, I'm afraid we won't have time to take care of them. I don't want them to get into an accident. Ask them if they're willing, Xiao Su said slowly. Chu Qingyan was stunned. She turned around and saw Bai Yutang and Snow Flower Cake, who were squatting behind her with a wooden ball in their mouths. The four of them surrounded her in a semicircle, their expressions sad and agitated. Ow ow, swish swish, translation, we don't want to go. We can take care of ourselves and protect Master. Xiaohai, Bai Yutang, Snow Flower Cake, glutinous rice ball, you guys, her eyes were moist, and she didn't know what to say. Ian, if you really can't bear to part with them, you don't have to let them leave first. Although he really wanted to throw them to the mines just now, Xiao Su smiled and reached out to stroke Snow Flower Cake's head. Snow Flower Cake whined. All right, since you spoke up for us, I'll reluctantly let you stroke my head. She thought that Big Ice Cube would agree, but she didn't expect him to reply like this. Chu Qingyan sighed, although I can't bear to part with them, I can't be so selfish. Before she finished speaking, Turin walked over quickly and reported to the two masters, His Highness Prince Yi is coming in our direction with Princess Nansong, and His Highness the Fourth Prince has also left the palace. He couldn't find Master in the prince's mansion, so he's also coming to the outskirts. So what if they're coming? 3 of them? Going for a walk together? It didn't look like it at all. Xiao Su waved his hand and ordered, take Xiaohai and Snow Flower Cake away first. Don't let anyone find them. Chu Qingyan comforted them well before taking them away smoothly. A quarter of an hour later, a carriage appeared in their sight as expected. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su looked at each other with solemn expressions. Chapter 11:26. Although the two of them had solemn expressions, they still discovered some small clues. Why was the Southern Sung Princess and Xiao Ho in the same carriage? Perhaps even Xiao Ho wouldn't be able to answer this question. On the way back to the capital, in order to protect her from those assassinations, Xiao Ho had gotten used to riding in the same carriage with her. Thus, on this trip to the suburbs, the person in charge of the carriages had only prepared one. The two people involved did not feel anything was wrong and got on the carriage habitually. Then, they began their daily bickering and threats. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su looked at each other. Could it be that there was something they didn't know? However, although the other party's intentions were unclear, Chu Qingyan was still curious about this Southern Sung princess. Not only was she here to steal her big ice cube, but she was also curious. Chu Qingyan couldn't be blamed for thinking this way because beauty was in the eye of the beholder. She only felt that her big ice cube was the best. However, if Pang Zhijing knew her thoughts, she would probably bang her head against the wall. She would rather choose a hypocrite like Xiao Ho than a 1,000-year-old ice cube like Xiao Su. The carriage stopped not far from them, and then someone got off the carriage. In this midsummer, only Xiao Ho was still wearing a cloak to block the wind. Chu Qingyan remembered that for so long, she had only asked for Xiao Ho's name but not his face. Looking at him now, his sickly and pale face could not hide his handsome face at all. He was a man who was as delicate as spring plum blossoms and snow. His lips were naturally curved upwards, and he always had a faint smile on his face. If she didn't know his true face, she would have been deceived by his appearance. Now, the one waiting was the legendary Southern Song Princess. The crisp sound of bells rang out, and a rainbow-colored dress appeared behind the curtain of the carriage. Exquisite embroidered shoes stepped out, and then a fair arm stretched out, wearing rings of silver bracelets. Finally, an elegant and charming face appeared in front of everyone. She had deep eyes, thick eyebrows, big eyes, a high nose bridge, and small red lips. She was a typical mountain beauty from a minority ethnic group. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but think of Snow Mountain Lotus. One look was enough to tell that she was a beauty. Moreover, standing next to Xiao Ho, such a gentle and elegant young master, they were a perfect match. A gentleman like jade and a beauty like a painting. Just as Chu Qingyan was sizing up the other party was also sizing her up. Xiao Ho glanced at the woman beside his brother. The only one who could get within 3 steps of him and act so intimately could only be Qingyan of the Chu clan. She was indeed a stunning beauty. Otherwise, the eldest brother, who had no dust in his eyes, and the fourth brother, who had eyes above the top of his head, would not be fighting over her. However, beauty was not important to him. Pang Zhijing, who was standing beside him, was not as calm as he was. She quietly reached out her hand and touched his arm. She whispered, "I'm not dreaming, right? There's such a gorgeous woman in the world. She's like the goddess in the ancient poems who looks back and smiles charmingly. She's actually alive, alive. Xiao Ho, does it hurt? Does it hurt? If it hurts, then it's real." Due to the presence of his subordinates and Xiao Su, Xiao Ho restrained the anger in his heart. He did not use his internal energy to push her away on the spot. Instead, he took a step forward and avoided her hand. "Princess, you should go up and greet her." Oh, okay, let's go and meet the beauty." Only then did Pang Zhijing react. She immediately walked past him and stared at Chu Qingyan in front of her. She did not want to look away for even a moment. For the second time in his life, Xiao Ho's eyes twitched. If she was a man, with such a perverted look, she would probably be kicked away by his eldest brother. What kind of strange creature did he bring with him? He took large strides to catch up with her and warned in a low voice, "If you don't want to be thrown out, then act normal." Just as she walked up to Chu Qingyan and heard his words, Pang Zhijing's 3 souls and 7 spirits immediately returned to their original positions. She almost forgot that there was still a 1,000-year-old ice block beside her, Xiao Su. As expected, beauty was a hindrance. She had to remain calm and not lose face for the appearance association. "Hello, I'm Pang Zhijing from Southern Blue." She rubbed her hands together and said somewhat nervously. Seeing the two walking over from afar and whispering to each other, Chu Qingyan felt that the two's behavior was quite intimate. Now that she saw Pang Zhijing standing in front of her and shyly introducing herself, Chu Qingyan let down her guard a little and couldn't help but smile. "Hello, I'm Chu Qingyan from Southern Blue." The 2 men on the side felt strange. "Xiao Ho, when did this stinky girl become so quiet all of a sudden?" "Xiao Su, this little fellow is too kind to her." "Big sister Qingyan, you're so beautiful. I've never seen a beauty as beautiful as you." Hearing that her goddess was so gentle, Pang Zhijing immediately dropped her pretense and moved closer. Cough cough, just as Pang Zhijing took a step forward, Xiao Ho violently coughed beside her. She instantly froze in place, cold sweat dripping down, and slowly retracted her foot. Xiao Su also retracted his hand when he saw this. If this woman dared to take another step forward, he would send her flying with a slap. Chu Qingyan knew that the big ice block was on guard. It was hard to tell whether the newcomer was friend or foe, and since she was with Xiao Ho, it was hard to tell which side she was on. Thank you for your praise, princess. You're naturally beautiful, and your appearance is somewhat different from us Sichuan girls. You have a unique sense of beauty. Other things aside, Pang Zhijing's appearance was very much in line with her aesthetic standards. Being praised by her goddess, Pang Zhijing was so excited that she didn't know where she was from. Xiao Ho looked at her cocky appearance and felt a headache coming on. Could he really leave her here to face these two people alone? Xiao Ho, didn't you say that you're not feeling well and that you want to rest? Go back to the carriage first. Little did he know that Pang Zhijing had already taken the initiative to make the decision for him. Xiao Ho looked at her coldly, and there was a strong wind blowing inside. Pang Zhijing shrank her neck. Didn't he say it himself in the carriage just now? Why was he so fierce? Chu Qingyan could see something fishy about the interaction between the two, but she couldn't figure out their purpose in coming here. At this moment, Xiao Ho raised his sickly face and said to Chu Qingyan and Pang Zhijing, "It's like this, Princess Jean is very interested in our Sichuan scenery. We've been in a hurry before, so we haven't been able to show her around. Now that the weather is good, we're taking her out for a walk as a host. It's a pity that this subject brother's body is too weak and can't stand standing for a long time. I didn't expect to run into my royal brother and Miss Chu, so I'll have to trouble the two of you to be a guide for Princess Jean." Chu Qingyan and Pang Zhijing tacitly expressed their disdain for this weak body. Pang Zhijing felt the pressure from Xiao Ho's gaze, so she immediately nodded and took the opportunity to make up stories. Right, his body is too weak. Any man in our southern blue has more strength than him. He's too useless. After saying this, Pang Zhijing instantly felt the temperature drop by several degrees. Xiao Su coldly watched the two from the side. When Xiao Ho finished speaking, he wanted to refuse, but the little fella pressed his hand down and signaled him not to speak with his eyes. Chapter 1127. Chu Qingyan's silent warning made Xiao Su stop what he was doing. He took a step back without anyone noticing. Because the two of them had formed a tacit understanding in life, they could tell what the other was thinking with just a glance or a movement. Since the little fellow had an idea, he would listen to her first. When Pang Zhijing saw Xiao Su's cold eyes, she thought he was going to deal with her, so she cowardly retreated behind Xiao Ho. This made Xiao Ho speechless. If she was this scared from just one meeting, how could he be assured to give her the mission? Chu Qingyan spoke up at this time. "Prince Yi, don't worry. We'll take good care of Princess Jean for you." Xiao Ho subconsciously agreed, then realized why those words sounded so awkward. Pang Zhijing blushed. Who was his? Xiao Ho nodded and returned to the carriage. But when he passed by Pang Zhijing, he warned her in a low voice, "If you dare to play any tricks, this prince won't let you off easily." After he left, Pang Zhijing patted her chest and let out a sigh of relief. That hypocrite was finally gone. But there was still a piece of thousand-year-old ice here, so she couldn't relax too quickly. Chu Qingyan smiled at this startled young lady and said, "If Princess Jean doesn't mind, you can join us for a picnic." I don't mind. She came here with a mission, so it would be great if she could infiltrate the enemy's base." Chu Qingyan smiled. She felt that this princess's emotions were written all over her face. She would only know if she was truly innocent or just faking it after interacting with her. Moreover, it definitely wasn't a coincidence that she and Xiao Ho were here. Who was Xiao Ho? He was scheming and shrewd, and he wasn't as kind as he appeared on the surface. A mighty tiger wasn't scary, but a wolf in sheep's clothing was. Thus, Pang Zhijing openly participated in their picnic. The four of them occupied a table each. Chu Qingyan introduced her father to Pang Zhijing. Unfortunately, Father Chu only thought that there was one more person coming to steal food from him, so he didn't give her a good look. He firmly protected the food in front of him and didn't even look at her. Pang Zhijing wasn't surprised. Before coming, Xiao Ho had her familiarize herself with the people around Xiao Su, so she didn't feel awkward knowing Father Chu's situation. Seeing Pang Zhijing's natural and unrestrained appearance, Chu Qingyan retracted her gaze and had Xining and the rest bring out all the food boxes. Pang Zhijing was still thinking about how to get closer to Xiao Su and finish his task. But when she saw the food, she forgot about business and almost drooled. Delicious, delicious. Throughout the whole process, Pang Zhijing only had fruits and pastries. Her mouth was also stuffed with food, as if she hadn't eaten for several days. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su looked at each other and saw the suspicion in each other's eyes. This person's behavior wasn't elegant, her knowledge was limited, and she hadn't even eaten the most common pastries and fruits. Was she really a princess raised by the Southern Blue imperial family? They couldn't be blamed for having high expectations. It was because they had seen Pang Huang, who even on the battlefield, had to be meticulous to the extreme. That was why they were surprised by the contrast between Pang Zhijing and herself. If Pang Zhijing knew what they were thinking, she would feel very wronged. She was actually a very reserved lady. Ever since she came to this strange world, she hadn't eaten a full meal. Moreover, on the way to the Sichuan, no matter how good Princess Lord's food was, it couldn't be compared to the delicacies in front of her. To her, the food she had eaten before could only be considered as filling her stomach. The food in front of her could be considered as delicacies. When she was almost done eating, Pang Zhijing raised her head and saw Father Chu staring at her with wide eyes. His eyes were filled with fear. When he saw her looking at him, he immediately hugged the food in his arms tightly. These are all mine. You're not allowed to snatch them. Sure enough, his guess was right. This girl was here to steal his food. Pang Zhijing belatedly realized that her table manners had made everyone look at her in a new light. She cursed in her heart. Wouldn't she be exposed? At this moment, Xiao Su couldn't bear to be in the same room with such a strange woman. He stood up and walked away. Seeing Xiao Su leave, Pang Zhijing looked at Chu Qingyan uneasily. Did I scare the King of England? Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. He's just like that. You don't have to worry about it. She didn't know if Gu Shijiu was comforting her or if she really meant it. However, she still heaved a sigh of relief. It was great that the 1,000-year-old ice was gone. You seem to be very close to the King of England. Gu Shijiu asked with a smile. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she sized Gu Shijiu up. Then she smiled and said, I've known him since I was 10 years old. We've been together ever since. The relationship between childhood sweethearts is really enviable. Pang Zhijing sighed. She could hear the envy in Pang Zhijing's sigh, but there was no jealousy or hatred. Gu Shijiu said gently, Princess, you don't have to be envious. Everyone has to put in effort to reach their position. Moreover, the other princes of our royal family are all very outstanding. Princess, you'll definitely find a good husband. At this moment, Chu Qingyan clearly noticed that when she mentioned the word good husband, she saw Pang Zhijing's evasive and unnatural gaze. She couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Could it be that it was as she guessed? That the princess had taken a liking to her big ice block? Sitting in the carriage, Xiao Ho rarely felt so uneasy. He lifted the curtain and looked at the foot of the mountain where the fog had dispersed. He could only see a figure in the distance, but it wasn't clear. Was this damned girl up to the task? Was it a mistake to choose her back then? At this moment, the sound of horse hooves could be heard from afar. Lord, it's His Royal Highness, the fourth prince, a subordinate reported. Xiao Ho narrowed his eyes. Xiao Ran came over at this time. However, Xiao Ho quickly smiled. He came at the right time. Perhaps the plan could be changed. Xiao Ran first saw the carriage parked under the tree. He thought it was his eldest brother's group, so he immediately walked over. However, it was his third royal brother who came down. Third royal brother, why are you here? Xiao Ran asked in surprise. Xiao Ho saw his handsome fourth royal brother walk over. He covered his mouth and coughed a few times. Then he smiled and said, Princess Jean wanted to see the outside of the city early in the morning. I was tasked by royal father to take care of the envoy group, so I brought her out. Coincidentally, we bumped into eldest brother and Miss Chu. Princess Jean admires eldest brother's heroic spirit, so she went out to play with them. I wasn't feeling well, so I took a rest in the carriage. In just a few short sentences, he had made all the connections clear. The royal family's sons and daughters all had outstanding comprehension abilities, and so did Xiao Ran. He placed his attention on Princess Jin's admiration for his eldest brother and fell into deep thought. Xiao Ho chuckled when he saw this. The actors were all here, so it was about time for the show to begin. Chapter 1128. How was your life while I wasn't here? Did everything go according to your wishes? Xiao Ho seemed to be casually mentioning this matter, but his eyes fell on Xiao Ran. He seemed to be careless, but he didn't miss any expression on his face. Hearing this, Xiao Ran drooped his head, looking very lost. I don't know if it was because I didn't express it clearly, but Qing Yan didn't understand my meaning at all. Xiao Ho raised his eyebrows. It seemed that he missed something when he wasn't here. Then, Xiao Ran seemed to have found a tree hole and told Xiao Ho everything that happened in Hugua Temple. He had already regarded Xiao Ho as his understanding older brother and the guide of his feelings. He even told him his mother's plan. It could be said that he told him everything he knew. The more he heard, the bigger the smile in Xiao Ho's eyes became. He looked at Xiao Ran with a mocking smile. This idiot really took the initiative to signal Chu Qingyan. It was obvious that Chu Qingyan was playing dumb. Unfortunately, Consort Yu wouldn't let Chu Qingyan do as she wished. He believed that with Consort Yu's intelligence and ruthlessness, she would soon help them break through this layer of window paper. Since your mother knows about this matter and is willing to help you, it proves that she supports you. You just have to wait for the beauty to come home. Don't be so lost. Cheer up. Xiao Ho encouraged him. Hearing this, Xiao Ran's face lit up a little, but it quickly turned to disappointment. But I don't have confidence in myself. What if Qing Yan doesn't like me? Xiao Ho laughed and patted his shoulder. Fourth brother. If you say that, then wouldn't all the men in the world have no face to see others? You have a noble status, an extraordinary handsome appearance, a wealth of knowledge, and great talent. You don't know how many women treat you as their ideal husband. So, don't lack confidence in yourself. Xiao Ran's eyes lit up. Really? Xiao Ho nodded with certainty. Xiao Ran regained his confidence and smiled bashfully. Alright, what are you doing here? Don't you know that the Southern Sung Princess is here? If you don't want to be used as an issue, then quickly leave. I'll tell your eldest brother that you're here to take something from me. Xiao Ho looked at his appearance and laughed in his heart. This kind of idiot was really easy to trick. Xiao Ran slapped the back of his head and said, Okay. I'll have to trouble you, third imperial brother. I'll be waiting for your wedding banquet. Xiao Ho said with a smile. Xiao Ran embarrassedly led his horse over and jumped onto it. He turned to him and said, I will. When the time comes, you'll be my red husband. I'll be leaving first. Red husband? What's that? But you'll be in for a blood-red calamity when the time comes. Xiao Ho gave a cold laugh. However, at this time, a hidden guard suddenly ran over. Lord, Miss Chu, and Princess Jean have been attacked. What? Xiao Ho was shocked and angry. At this time, in the depths of the forest, Chu Qingyan looked at the black-clothed people in front of her with vigilance. She placed her hand on her waist and asked, Who are you? There were over a dozen black-clothed people lined up in front of her. They were all tall and mighty with black masks over their faces. Their eyes were fierce and they didn't look like Sichuan people. They didn't place the two retarded girls in their eyes at all. Chu Qingyan subconsciously looked at Pang Zhijing who was hiding behind her. Were these people here for her? King of England's consort, I don't know martial arts. Do you? What should we do? Did I implicate you? Pang Zhijing was already a bit incoherent. She had seen too many situations like this on the way here. Because Xiao Ho was by her side, she didn't feel much danger. But now that it was just her and Chu Qingyan, they were like ants waiting to be slaughtered. When she said this, Chu Qingyan's eyes darkened. She had guessed right. Pang Zhijing was especially talkative when she was nervous and scared. She couldn't control herself at this time. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have been so willful. I said I wanted to see the scenery inside and brought you in, causing you to be in the same predicament as me. Before Chu Qingyan could reply, the other party was already impatient. He directly went forward to push Chu Qingyan away and then went to grab Pang Zhijing, who was behind her. It was a good idea, but when the black-clothed man reached out to touch Chu Qingyan's shoulder, he was kicked down by her side. Pang Zhijing, who was behind Chu Qingyan, was still wondering if she should take responsibility for what she had done. Just as she was about to step in front of Chu Qingyan, she froze on the spot. She watched as Chu Qingyan sent the man in black, who was more than a head taller than her, flying with a flying kick. Not only was Pang Zhijing shocked, even the black-clothed men who underestimated their enemy didn't expect that such a weak and beautiful woman would have such great strength. No, it should be internal energy. They were stunned for a moment. When they reacted, they had already flashed their weapons at Chu Qingyan. They quickly rushed over, intending to hack her to death. In the eyes of assassins, especially well-trained assassins, there was no such thing as having tender feelings for the fairer sex. Chu Qingyan snorted softly. She only said, "Hide behind the tree trunk behind." After that, she rushed towards the black-clothed men like an arrow released from a bow. After returning to the capital for so long, her muscles and bones hadn't been properly stretched. It was better to be early than early. She had to take advantage of this opportunity to practice. When normal people saw that they were outnumbered, they would choose to run away. They didn't expect that this woman didn't run, but instead came forward to meet them. Was she too confident, or did she overestimate herself? Sichuan women were like weak chickens. They didn't take them seriously at all. Chu Qingyan was like a gentle and quiet peony when she didn't show her true colors. But once she revealed her true colors, even when she was smiling, she had an imposing manner without being angry. Pang Zhijing obeyed her subconsciously and ran behind the tree trunk. Then, she realized that she was going to fight 10 people at once. It was too scary. What if something happened to her? Would he be cut into pieces by Xiao Su? When she thought of this, Pang Zhijing didn't even dare to look back. She put her palms together and said, "Guanyin Bodhisattva of the South Sea, Amitba, 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 Buddha Amitba, Buddha Tathagata. Please protect Princess Consort Ing." At this time, the men in black surrounded her with ridicule, but it was exactly what Chu Qingyan wanted. The moment she closed in, she pulled out the flexible sword at her waist. A white light flashed in their eyes. Before they could react, Chu Qingyan had already entered their encirclement. Xiao Su, who didn't want to be in the same place as Pang Zhijing, was at the foot of the mountain. He was looking at the news that he had just received about Pang Zhijing being picked up by Xiao Ho. When he saw that an unknown person had been trying to assassinate Pang Zhijing, Jasper suddenly ran over. "Your Highness, Master and the Southern Sung Princess disappeared a quarter of an hour ago." Xiao Su instantly crushed the letter in his hand. His pupils shrank and his entire person became dangerous. Daring to touch his people. Chapter 1129. A white light flashed, and 2 of them were struck by Chu Qingyan's sword. Their mouths were slightly open, but not a single word came out. They laid on the ground, their faces filled with unwillingness. How could they be defeated by a lady? The moment she made her move, she had already lost 2 of their brothers. The others were shocked, and then, their faces became cautious, and there was even a kind of anger. Their moves were ruthless and ruthless. Chu Qingyan dealt with them all at once. It was somewhat strenuous, but the corner of her mouth raised into a subtle arc. These people were not stupid assassins. They were all elites, and their martial arts were not below Xiao Lai Chi's. When they fought with her, they realized that her sword techniques were extremely high, and it was not the sword techniques of Sichuan that they knew. So they chose to understand her sword techniques, and then kill her in one blow. But every time they understood her sword techniques would be different. It kept changing, and in the end, it would become a combination of 2 sword techniques or 3 sword techniques. Again and again, the men in black found that she was playing with them. They were very angry, but they couldn't do anything to her. Her qinggong was very outstanding. Her whole body was like a slippery loach. They couldn't catch her at all. Chu Qingyan still maintained that subtle smile, and smoothly shuttled back and forth between them. When they wanted to understand her sword techniques, she was also observing their movements. But her starting point was different from theirs. She wanted to imitate and learn. In other words, she wanted to steal their techniques. At the end, she felt that the time was right. She slightly raised her lips, and the smile on her face slowly widened. The sword techniques in her hands started to change. It was different from before, but the black-clothed men felt that it was strangely familiar. But, they did not have time to react. Because the lady in front of them, suddenly seemed to have changed into another person. Her sword techniques were ruthless and sinister, but it also brought about a natural carefree feeling. It was as if they saw a graceful lady playing the zither across the river. The zither sounds were pleasing to the ears, and when it entered their ears, it started to tremble in their bodies. In the end, they bled from their 7 orifices and died. Slow and unhurried killing intent. Melodious and light killing techniques. When they were unable to move and fell down, they realized that they had died from their own techniques. When Chu Qingyan's feet touched the ground again, the black-clothed men were lying in disarray in front of her. Some of them were already dead. They probably did not expect that they would not only fall to their techniques, but also the sword techniques that she had never used before. Because there was always someone better. In places that they did not know, there would definitely be many techniques that they had never seen before. For example, the assassins that Nan Sung sent, the sword techniques that she had seen for the first time in the past few years. And it was to her taste. Furthermore, she had collected sword techniques. And she had seen many sword techniques that she had seen for the first time in these few years, and it was the sword techniques that they were, and it. That was why she didn't release the signal immediately, but chose to fight on her own. Otherwise, with the big ice cube's temper, he definitely wouldn't let her deal with so many people by herself. Only. Her gaze turned to the tree that had been muttering. 8 immortals crossing the sea to protect, pagoda-bearing heavenly king of England to suppress evil. I have prayed to all the immortals, gods, and Buddhas. Please don't let anything happen to the consort of England. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. This Nan Sung princess was really interesting. Why is there no sound? Is it? Peng Zhijing stopped abruptly. Was she really going to be chopped into pieces by Xiao Su? She had a mournful face. Chu Qingyan was in danger because of her. She could not just stand by and watch. Yes, I want to save her. After she finished speaking, she immediately stood up and looked around. Finally, she picked up a tree branch from the ground and did some mental preparation. It was not easy for her to muster up the courage to turn around, only to find that the person leaning against the tree trunk was curiously sizing her up. Ah, ghost! With a world-shaking roar, thousands of birds flew away and all traces of people disappeared. Chu Qingyan put down her hands that were covering her ears and sighed, I'm not a ghost. I'm a living person. Did this Nan Sung princess have some kind of paranoia? Or did she read too many ghost stories? How could there be a ghost in broad daylight? Peng Zhijing, who was holding her head, finally heard her words and looked up at her. Chu Qingyan thought to herself that there shouldn't be any more problems this time, right? But she saw the other party look up at her with teary eyes. Then, like a tornado, she flew towards her without any warning. She couldn't dodge in time and was hugged tightly. Woo-woo, it's good that you're fine. You scared me to death. You scared me to death. Pang Zhijing rarely saw this kind of life and death situation. Her entire person was scared stiff. Chu Qingyan wanted to struggle, but she didn't want the other party to hug her too tightly. She couldn't use too much strength and she could tell that the other party didn't know martial arts. If she hurt her, then she wouldn't be able to explain herself. But after feeling the other party's sincere concern, Chu Qingyan's expression softened. She raised her free hand and gently patted her back. She gently comforted her, "Don't be afraid. The bad guys have already been taken care of, so you can relax." However, the only reply she got was a loud cry. Chu Qingyan felt a headache coming on. She wasn't afraid of anything, but she was afraid of hearing a girl cry. She didn't know how to comfort her at this time. However, she didn't need to worry because she felt a force push the person off her. Then she turned around and was surrounded by a familiar and warm embrace. Her lips curled up slightly. Her big ice cube was here. "I'm late." The deep and pleasant voice was filled with self-blame. She looked up from his embrace and flashed her neat little teeth. "I'm fine, but where's Princess Jean?" Xiao Su checked her body and found that her arm was injured. His eyes turned cold and he looked to the side. Chu Qingyan followed his gaze and saw Pang Zhijing being thrown at Xiaoho by the big ice cube. At that time, Xiaoho had also rushed over and was caught off guard by Pang Zhijing hanging onto him. She was even wiping her snot and tears on his body. "Xiaoho, I almost died. It was the King of England's consort who saved me. Woo-woo, I'm so unlucky. Didn't you say that those people wouldn't come again?" "You liar," she was thrown off by Xiao Su just now, so she knew that the Millennium Ice Cube wouldn't let her go. She just happened to be caught by Xiao Ho, so she clung onto him. If Xiao Su wanted to blame her, she would have a scapegoat. Because she didn't know how to deal with this situation, she would pull as many people as she could. Chapter 1130. Xiaoho's expression was extremely ugly but he didn't know why, but when he saw her standing in front of him safe and sound, his heart actually heaved a sigh of relief. Wait a minute, why did he have such a strange thought? No, why would he be concerned about her? He thought in his heart that it must be because he was afraid that something would happen to her and he wouldn't be able to complete his plan, which was why he was worried about her. Thinking in this way, Xiaoho found the reason to comfort himself and then without leaving a trace, he pulled her down and pulled a distance away from her. His gaze swept over her body and found that she wasn't injured at all. He then placed his gaze on Xiao Su, who had an unkind look in his eyes, and Chu Qingyan, who had a strange smile on her face. "Miss Chu, are you all right?" Xiaoho's tone was filled with concern as he inquired, but his gaze was more focused on the injury on her arm and the black-robed man who was lying down not too far away. His men had crossed hands with many of these people along the way, but none of them were able to escape unscathed from the encirclement of so many people. However, just now it was just Chu Qingyan and this stinky lass. If this stinky lass knew martial arts, then she wouldn't have been controlled by them, so there was only one explanation. These people were all personally dealt with by Chu Qingyan. He knew that Chu Qingyan knew martial arts, but he had never thought that her martial arts were actually not below the shadow guards that he had personally groomed. Perhaps it could be said that she was even more outstanding, so he couldn't help but be wary of her. "I'm fine." Chu Qingyan knew what he was thinking, but she just didn't want to let him have his way. If it wasn't for a passing hermit expert who lent a helping hand, I'm afraid that we would have fallen into the enemy's hands. Hermit expert? Xiao Ho looked suspiciously at the sobbing Pang Zhijing who was by his side. Pang Zhijing saw that everyone's gaze had landed on her and she subconsciously stopped sobbing as she replied with a confused look, "I don't know, I was hiding earlier." Only the King of England's consort was brave enough to face those bad people alone. But to be able to kill so many black-robed men, that hermit expert must be very powerful. It's a pity that I didn't get to see him. Xiao Ho felt the corners of his eyes twitching again. He chose to ignore Pang Zhijing's words and turned to look at Chu Qingyan. No matter what, it's fortunate that you were by the princess's side. Fortunately, you were unharmed. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to explain this to Imperial Father and the court. Xiao Su snorted coldly. If you want the peace talks between the two countries to proceed smoothly, then keep an eye on your people. Don't let her run around. After saying this, Xiao Su took his little fellow and walked towards the carriage without looking back. Xiao Ho was stunned. What did he mean by his people? Why did he feel that his eldest brother's words seemed to have an unusual meaning? Chu Qingyan turned around and smiled at the two of them. Then, she followed Big Ice Cube and left. Seeing her savior leave just like that, Pang Zhijing was a little reluctant and stared at her back. Xiao Ho recovered from Xiao Su's warning and looked at her infatuated gaze as he said coldly, I haven't seen you for half a day and you successfully developed feelings for Xiao Su. It seems that you're very dedicated to our cooperation. Pang Zhijing rolled her eyes at him. What are you thinking? Xiao Su is such a big glacier, I can't even hide in time. Speaking of this, Pang Zhijing's expression suddenly became gentle. I'm looking at Miss Chu. She's too handsome. Sometimes she's gentle, sometimes she's as strong as iron. I've never seen such a beautiful and handsome woman in one body. She's simply my goddess. Pang Zhijing did not hide her admiration for Chu Qingyan and she was completely immersed in the fanatical worship of her idol. But when this scene fell into Xiao Ho's eyes, his fair face darkened a little. Princess, don't blame this prince for not reminding you. If you don't complete the mission, then the day you decide on the marriage partner will be the day you drink tea with the king of hell. I hope you know what's best for you. After Xiao Ho finished speaking, he turned around and left. Hey, when did I provoke you? Why are you always so unpredictable? Pang Zhijing put away her admiration and lifted her skirt to follow him. Xiao Ho ignored her. At this time, Pang Zhijing discovered that her sleeve was stained with blood. She cried out in alarm, I'm injured. Xiao Ho felt that it was simply a demonic sound that pierced his ears. The one who's injured is Chu Qingyan. Pang Zhijing was stunned for a moment. Then, she pursed her lips and was about to cry again. She must have gotten injured while blocking the sword for me. Miss Chu really is a good person. A good person? Xiao Ho chuckled. She can kill so many people without blinking an eye. How can she be a good person? She didn't hear the sarcasm in his words and only felt that his tone made her very uncomfortable. She retorted, who said she killed people? Didn't you say that a hidden expert saved us? Xiao Ho scoffed. How naive. Pang Zhijing couldn't take it anymore after being scorned so bluntly. She stomped on his foot. I was frightened, and you still dare to laugh at me? You're too much. After saying that, she ran off in a huff. Xiao Ho looked at the footprints on his foot, then looked at the fleeing figure. For the third time in his life, the corners of his mouth twitched. It's really hard to deal with vile people and women. At this moment, on the grassland. Big Ice Cube, aren't we going to investigate those people? Because she discovered that these people were all death warriors, she didn't leave them alive. Because even if she did, it would be useless. These people only obeyed orders and wouldn't know too many secrets. Xiao Su's face darkened. I already know who sent those people. I'll tell you in the car. Chu Qingyan's eyes brightened. He found out the mastermind so quickly. This was fun. Under Chu Qingyan's urging, the two quickly got into the carriage. She wholeheartedly waited for him to reveal the truth. However, she didn't expect him to take out the medicine box first and pull her hand over to apply medicine. Big Ice Cube, hurry up and tell me. She asked anxiously. However, the person in front of her seemed to only be able to see her wound. Although the wound wasn't deep, it was still bleeding. Xiao Su ignored her question and said as he applied medicine, in the future, don't make decisions on your own. If you're in danger, inform me. Don't bear it alone. Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue. She didn't expect the big ice cube to see through her actions. She laughed mischievously and said coquettishly, "Didn't I just want to practice? Look, didn't I escape unscathed?" Xiao Su glanced at her. "You were lucky this time. If that sword was smeared with poison, do you think you can still sit here and chat with me?" If the other party wasn't arrogant and didn't take them seriously, then she was afraid that things wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Chu Qingyan then realized the seriousness of the matter. She stopped smiling and said seriously, "I was careless. I won't do it again." Xiao Su saw that she had learned her lesson and relaxed. At this moment, he helped her wrap the white gauze and asked, "After interacting with Pang Zhijing, what kind of person do you think Pang Zhijing is?"